Chapter 468. The Nether Abyss Valley was one of the 10 great forbidden areas of Firmament Star. Among the 10 great forbidden areas, the ancient battlefield had the shortest history and was the least dangerous. The other 9 forbidden areas were much more dangerous than the ancient battlefield, and they all had a long history that was a few times longer than the ancient battlefield. The Nether Abyss Valley was shrouded in an eerie atmosphere all year round. Every cultivator who entered this place would have a strange energy invading their mind. Since ancient times, only a few could walk out of this place alive. At this time, on a small path in the Nether Abyss Valley, sage ruler Changqin was carefully moving forward. His surroundings were eerily quiet, and not even the sound of insects could be heard. The eerie atmosphere shrouded him. Before he knew it, a thin layer of cold sweat had formed on his forehead. He felt like his mind was in great torment, and eerie illusions flashed before his eyes from time to time. He even saw Chu Kuangren suddenly appear in front of him. The Nether Abyss Valley could evoke the deepest fear in a person's heart, and Chu Kuangren was the person that sage ruler Changqin feared the most. If this goes on, I'm going to be tortured by these illusions. The Nether Abyss Valley is indeed a forbidden area. Even a sage ruler like me can't stay here for long. I really don't know how those seniors managed to settle down here. They're just too powerful. Sage ruler Changqin relied on his sage ruler cultivation and mental fortitude to persevere and move forward. Suddenly, he heard the cawing of crows. He had never seen a single living creature in the Nether Abyss Valley, but now he heard the cawing of crows. Sage ruler Changqin's eyes lit up. Did you find it? He walked towards the source of the cawing. Soon, he saw a wooden house from afar. In front of the wooden house, there were a few crows perched on a withered tree branch. I found it. Sage ruler Changqin was delighted and hurried forward. However, at that moment, the crows on the tree branch turned to look at him. Their dark red eyes were filled with wariness as they cawed. The cawing was sharp and piercing as if it could pierce through one's soul. Sage ruler Changqin could not help but shudder and stop in his tracks. He looked at the crow a few times with some fear. Then, he took out a black wooden token and said, I am the current palace lord of the heavenly golden palace, sage ruler Changqin. I'm here to see Senior Wuxia. Oh, Blackwood Order. Who are you to Chang Guang? The crows on the branches suddenly opened their mouths. Their voices were sharp, and it was the voice of a woman. Sacred ruler Changqin was slightly surprised to see this, but he did not ask further. He answered, Zhang Guang is the progenitor of our god palace. Why didn't he come himself? Forefather Chang Guang has already passed away. Hearing that, a look of surprise appeared in the eyes of the crows. They then flew into the air and gathered together, turning into a tall and beautiful woman dressed in a black dress. Wu Yu raised her hand and grabbed the black wooden token in sage ruler Changqin's hand. Then, she said calmly, dead? No matter what, Zhang Guang is a quasi-emperor. Aside from us, who are in the Forbidden Land, no one in the outside world can kill him. How did he die? Sage ruler Changqin told her everything that had happened in the outside world in the past few years. Boundary Emperor Wuxia was very surprised to hear that. A supreme sage has appeared in the Firmament Star. That's rare. No wonder the heavenly Tao was shaken and such energy waves appeared. Then, she fiddled with the wooden token and said, since he's a supreme sage, his combat strength should be strong enough to rival a quasi-emperor. Although I'm friends with Chang Guang, my true form is still in hibernation. There's no need for me to fight a sage with a bright future just for your sake. Sage ruler Changqin seemed to have expected such a reaction from her. He took out a yin and yang ring and handed it over. It contained the gifts prepared by the orthodoxies. Senior, do you know that in this great era, there are all kinds of opportunities of fortune? Some of them are also very useful to quasi-emperors. Senior, you're in hibernation here, so it's inconvenient for you to travel outside. If you can help us overcome this calamity, the heavenly golden palace is willing to serve you. Sage ruler Changqin said. Wuxia took the yin and yang ring and pondered. She looked into the depths of the nether abyss valley. There were many quasi-emperors like her in hibernation. It was not just the nether abyss valley. The other forbidden areas had more or less people like them. However, in the past, the great Tao did not exist, and it was difficult for emperors to appear. Therefore, these people could only live in seclusion in the forbidden areas and ignore the affairs of the world. Some of them even chose to hibernate to preserve their combat strength in order to wait for the opportunity to become an emperor. Now that the era of emperors had arrived, those in the forbidden areas would not be able to sit still any longer. It was time for her to make a proper plan. The heavenly golden palace was a top-notch orthodoxy after all. If she could use it, it might be useful in the future. However, was it worth it to make an enemy out of a supreme sage? Boundary Emperor Wuxia weighed the pros and cons. Sage ruler Changqin gritted his teeth and took out a light blue supreme medicine. Waves of mysterious Daoist rhymes emanated from it. This is an emperor-grade supreme medicine. Boundary Emperor Wuxia's eyes lit up. That's right, this is an emperor-grade supreme medicine. This medicine can extend a boundary emperor's life by more than 10,000 years. Please accept it, Senior Wuxia. Even a boundary emperor had a limited lifespan. The older a boundary emperor was, the weaker their physical strength would be, and the more limited their combat strength would be. Otherwise, there would not be so many boundary emperors who chose to hibernate in the forbidden areas to preserve their strength. An emperor-grade supreme medicine that could extend a boundary emperor's life by more than 10,000 years was definitely a huge temptation to a boundary emperor. Even though boundary Emperor Wuxia was still a long way from heavenly deterioration stage 5, she still did not want to reject it. Changguang and I have a history of discussing Taoism. Since you're so kind, I'll go on your behalf. Boundary Emperor Wuxia said calmly before grabbing the monarch's supreme treasure herb in Sage ruler Changqin's hand. Thank you, Senior Wuxia. Sage ruler Changqin was overjoyed. 3 days had passed since the Black Heaven sect announced that they would deal with the 5 orthodoxies of the heavenly golden palace. It was now nighttime, and when the sun rose, it would be time for Chu Kuangren to strike. However, what puzzled everyone was that Chu Kuangren had not left the Black Heaven sect at all in the past 3 days. How was he going to deal with the 5 orthodoxies then? Late at night. The bright moon hung high in the sky, its moonlight was like water, and the stars were dazzling. Black Heaven sect, inside the towering Heaven Palace. Chu Kuangren sat with his legs crossed, familiarizing himself with the power within his body. Suddenly, his eyes opened, and his gaze traveled hundreds of kilometers to the Black Heaven sect's mountain entrance. A lady in a black dress slowly walked towards him. There was not a single trace of aura on this lady, as if she had blended in with the night. She walked into the Black Heaven sect as if there was no one around. Aside from Chu Kuangren, no one else could see her. You sure have guts to come uninvited, you thief. Chu Kuangren's voice rang in Boundary Emperor Wuxia's ears. The next moment, he stepped on the moonlight and slowly walked towards her. Upon seeing Chu Kuangren before her, Boundary Emperor Wuxia's eyes revealed a hint of awe. Everyone says that Black Heaven sect leader Chu has an otherworldly appearance. Now that I've seen you in person, I finally know that the rumors are true. Chapter 469. You may be telling the truth, but that doesn't cover up the fact that you've infiltrated the Black Heaven sect. Tell me, why are you here? As he spoke, Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation. Information about Boundary Emperor Wuxia appeared before his eyes. Wuxia, a blood-eyed crow, Boundary Emperor. Possesses the mystique of the blood-eyed crow, Boundary Emperor technique, current state, spiritual thought form. The information that flashed before his eyes caught Chu Kuangren's attention. He could not help but smirk. Sure enough, there were more boundary emperors in this world than Hai Yu and Chongguang. After all, even if no one had become an emperor in the past 150,000 years, there should have been a certain number of boundary emperors. Not to mention the primordial era and the primordial era. Sect leader Chu, you're already a supreme sage at such a young age. Your talent is unparalleled throughout history, and you've managed such a large orthodoxy so well. I'm impressed. Boundary Emperor Wuyue wanted to get closer to Chu Kuangren. If possible, she would rather resolve sage ruler Changqin's request peacefully. At that moment, Chu Kuangren raised his hand, and a pen and paper appeared in front of him. Boundary Emperor Wuyue was puzzled and confused. Here's a pen and paper. If you're here to praise me, write down your compliments and leave. I'll read them when I have the time in the future, Chu Kuangren said calmly. The corners of Quasi-Emperor Wuyue's mouth twitched when she heard this. She was wasting her breath. Sect leader Chu, you must be joking. My name is Wuyue, and I'm here today to be a lobbyist for the Heavenly Golden Palace. Alright, you may leave now. Chu Kuangren raised his hand to interrupt Boundary Emperor Wuyue. You, Boundary Emperor Wuyue's expression darkened. Sect leader Chu, isn't it rude of you to chase me away again and again? This is my territory. It's rude of you to come here without an invitation. The Heavenly Golden Palace and the other orthodoxies are sworn enemies of my Black Heaven sect, yet you're trying to persuade them. That's disrespectful, and disrespectful. I'm already being very polite by merely asking you to leave, Chu Kuangren said. Quasi-Emperor Wuyue was rendered speechless. After a while, she took a deep breath. Looks like sect leader Chu's eloquence is not inferior to your cultivation. She took a step forward, and a boundless and terrifying aura erupted from her initially lifeless body, crushing towards Chu Kuangren. Then let me put it this way. I, Wu Yu, will protect the Heavenly Golden Palace and the other orthodoxies. Is that clear enough? Boundary Emperor Wuyue said in a cold voice. Cut the crap. Can't you just be more direct? Chu Kuangren said calmly as a surge of sharp sword-based Daoist rhyme emanated from his body, fighting against Boundary Emperor Wuyue's domineering aura. Then let me be clear. I will destroy the Heavenly Golden Palace and the other orthodoxies. No one can save them. Both of their auras were clashing against each other, but not a single trace of their auras leaked out. Other than the void around them that seemed to be slightly distorted, the rest of the Black Heaven sect was not affected at all. Some of the disciples were still sleeping soundly, unaware that two powerful figures were confronting each other not far away from them. Under the starry sky, Chu Kuangren and Boundary Emperor Wuyue's auras circulated as they faced each other from afar, neither giving in to the other. One was a newly ascended supreme sage, a peerless sky pride. The other was a Boundary Emperor's clone that had lived for countless years. Both of them were rare top-notch cultivators in the current era. You want to protect those orthodoxies? Do you think you're qualified? The descendant self-sword at Chu Kuangren's waist vibrated, and the sword-based Daoist rhyme suddenly surged. In an instant, it completely suppressed Boundary Emperor Wuyue's aura. Her opponent was just a spiritual thought clone. Even if she could unleash the combat strength of a sage ruler, it was still not enough against the current Chu Kuangren. She did not even know if she could withstand a single sword attack from him. At that moment, the darkness of the night was broken by the first rays of dawn. The clouds rumbled as the sun rose. The sky was bright. When Chu Kuangren saw that, he simply said, "It's time." Chu Kuangren, you win. But I've said that I will protect those orthodoxies. If you dare to come, then fight me. Boundary Emperor Wuyue said. She knew that today's negotiation had failed, and her spiritual thought clone was no match for her opponent. Hence, she wanted to leave. Oh, you think you can leave just like that? You must be dreaming. If I want to leave, no one in this world can stop me. As soon as Boundary Emperor Wuyue said that, her spiritual thought clone turned into hundreds of crows and flew in all directions. Each crow was a strand of her spiritual sense. As long as one of them didn't die, her spiritual sense incarnation wouldn't disappear. If I want to stay, no one can leave. Chu Kuangren said. He raised his palm, and an invisible wave of mind power instantly spread in all directions, enveloping the entire area. All the crows were trapped in mid-air by his mind power. A hint of panic appeared in the crow's eyes. What have you done? Let your real body have a taste of my power. Chu Kuangren said as he activated his mind power. The hundreds of crows all turned into black smoke and disappeared. After becoming a sage, Chu Kuangren's soul had been transformed by the purple haze, which greatly increased his growth potential and soul energy. His spiritual thoughts, which were already far beyond a sage ruler's, had reached an unimaginable level. Now, he could easily kill most sage rulers with just his spiritual thoughts alone. If he were to use his runic techniques, even a 7-step sage ruler would not be able to last more than a few rounds. Killing a few crows was just a matter of reaching out and grabbing them. Inside the Nether Abyss Valley, a grunt was heard in the wooden hut. Chu Kuangren, if that's the case, I shall fight you with my real body. Let's see how you can withstand the power of a boundary emperor. Firmament Star, outside the Black Heaven sect. Surges of spiritual thoughts surged and spied on the Black Heaven sect. Today, it was time for Chu Kuangren to deal with the 5 orthodoxies. When everyone's spiritual thoughts arrived at the Black Heaven sect, they saw Chu Kuangren, who had just destroyed Boundary Emperor Wu's clone, standing on a mountain peak. As he stood on the mountain peak, the morning sun shone on him as if he was draped in a golden robe, making him look even more sacred. At that moment, a white ray of light swept past. It was Lan Yu. In her hands, there were 5 wooden tablets. The crowd did not understand. Did he not say that he was going to destroy the 5 orthodoxies? What was he up to now? Master, the items are here. Lan Yu placed the 5 wooden tokens in front of Chu Kuangren. Come, pick one. Chu Kuangren chuckled. Lan Yu casually picked up a wooden token with a few red words written on it. Acheron Manor. Then let's destroy Acheron Manor first. Chu Kuangren said nonchalantly. However, the great ones who heard Chu Kuangren's words felt like they were dreaming when they saw that. The fate of a few top-notch orthodoxies was tied to a few small wooden tokens. Whichever one they picked would be destroyed. Was there anything more ridiculous than this in this world? At that moment, Chu Kuangren raised his hand and gathered the spiritual energy of the heavens and earth. A 10,000-meter-tall ancient Buddha appeared in the air, its Buddhist light surging like waves. It was the Emperor technique, Tathagata Rebirth Mantra. The Tathagata avatar raised its hand and unleashed a palm attack. This palm attack was exactly the same as the one that destroyed the ancient battlefield. Chapter 470. The sea of clouds rumbled as the sun rose. Today's weather was perfect for killing and annihilating an entire sect. Chu Kuangren stood on top of a mountain peak as the boundless Buddhist light on his body surged and turned into an ancient Buddha that shook the heavens and earth. His spiritual thoughts surged and instantly covered the entire firmament star. Soon, he locked onto the location of Acheron Manor. The ancient Buddha slowly unleashed a palm attack. This palm strike directly struck into the void and disappeared. While everyone was still in shock, they suddenly realized that a huge surge of energy had appeared in the sky above Acheron Manor 1,000,000 kilometers away. That was the energy of the Tathagata Rebirth Mantra. Everyone surged their spiritual thoughts and realized that an extremely powerful Buddhist light had appeared in the sky above Acheron Manor. A giant golden palm descended from the sky. F***ck me. Isn't that Chu Kuangren's technique? Isn't he in the Black Heaven sect? Oh my god, he sent that palm attack to Acheron Manor from 1,000,000 kilometers away. How did he do it? Everyone was horrified. It was terrifying. It was truly terrifying. Any orthodoxy would be afraid of such an ability. Imagine if one was sitting at home while a palm came from the sky. If one did not even know where the other party was, how could one fight? All the sages in Acheron Manor flew out and looked at the giant golden palm descending from the sky in fear. Activate the formation. The Acheron Manor Lord roared. Lines of runes intertwined above Acheron Manor and turned into a black chi barrier that covered Acheron Manor like a giant bowl. With a loud boom, the giant palm collided with the chi barrier. The ground within a 10,000-kilometer radius shook violently. Huge cracks spread and crisscrossed the ground. Many disciples in Acheron Manor were shocked by the terrifying impact and vomited blood on the spot as they looked at the giant palm in the sky in fear. It was a power that could destroy the world. Crack, crack, at that moment, countless cracks appeared on the chi barrier that protected Acheron Manor. The Acheron Manor Lord and the others were shocked. We can't hold it anymore. So fast? With a loud explosion, the chi barrier exploded. The Acheron Manor Lord and the other sages could not just sit and wait. They channeled their strongest powers and unleashed the strongest emperor technique of Acheron Manor. The Yellow Spring's Eye. Numerous gigantic demonic eyes appeared in the void of space. Rays of demonic light shot out and hit the giant palm in the sky. However, this only slightly hindered the momentum of the giant palm. It was impossible for it to collapse. Chu Kuangren. We won't let you off even if we become ghosts. Acheron Manor Lord bellowed in despair. But it was useless. In the end, the golden palm still landed on Acheron Manor. Countless palaces and buildings were instantly destroyed, and everything within 100 miles was razed to the ground. The dust that was kicked up spread out like waves, covering tens of thousands of miles and causing a huge impact on the surrounding terrain and environment. The mountains cracked and the rivers changed their course. The sages in the Acheron Manor exploded one by one. Countless disciples had no chance of surviving this attack. With a single palm strike, Yellow Springs Manor was destroyed. Everyone was shocked speechless. Some of them had seen the scene of Chu Kuangren destroying the ancient battlefield with a single palm attack, but they could not help but be shocked when they saw it again. Sometimes, they even wondered if he had become an emperor. How could a sage have such power? In the Black Heaven sect, the Buddhist light on Chu Kuangren's body slowly dissipated. He was surrounded by beauties, birds, and flowers, but 1,000,000 miles away, his single palm attack had turned the world into an apocalyptic scene. The more that happened, the more terrified everyone felt. Come, Lan Yu. Flip another one. Chu Kuangren said. Hearing his words, Lan Yu's fingers moved back and forth between the remaining wooden tablets, as if debating which one to choose. Many great ones gulped. One must know that her choice could very well mean the end of an orthodoxy. That pair of hands held the life and death of countless people in their hands. This one. Lan Yu flipped the next wooden tablet. Oh, the sacred palace of death. It'll be him then. Meanwhile, in the sacred palace of death. The sacred palace of death rushed out of the palace and said fearfully, "Quick, activate the protective formation and hide all disciples in the stone coffins." A gray barrier enveloped the entire sacred palace. Then, a giant mountain rose from the ground. Instead of calling it a mountain, it was more accurate to call it a giant stone coffin. The stone coffin was engraved with countless runes. Countless disciples entered the stone coffin in confusion, not knowing what was going on. However, they all knew that it was something big. The stone coffin would only be activated when the sacred palace was on the brink of death. Look, what's that? Suddenly, a disciple exclaimed in fear. The sky above the sacred palace distorted, and a giant fist with a diameter of hundreds of feet, burning with black flames, descended from the sky. The surging energy shook the heavens and earth. "Quick, enter the stone coffin," the sacred palace of death yelled. He did the same and rushed into the stone coffin. The black fist landed on the sacred palace of death's barrier and shattered it in the blink of an eye. Then, it landed on the giant stone coffin. Waves of life and death Daoist rhymes erupted from the stone coffin. However, the power of the fist was too terrifying. The Daoist rhymes on the stone coffin were continuously shattered, and the impact penetrated the stone coffin and affected the people inside. One by one, the sacred palace disciples exploded into mist, and the sages' bodies began to crack as they screamed in pain. With a loud bang, the stone coffin shattered. The life and death Daoist rhymes and the energy contained in the fist collided, forming a storm that engulfed everyone. The sacred palace of death. Destroyed. On the mountain peak of the Black Heaven sect. Lan Yu, next. It's the ethereal rapture. Alright. Inside the ethereal rapture. The sect leader rushed out and yelled, "All disciples, run. Run as far as you can." "Sect leader, what's happening?" a disciple asked in fear. "Get out of here." The ethereal rapture sect leader continued to yell in despair. However, it was too late. A surge of finger strength suddenly descended from the sky. That finger strength contained a power that could awaken one's Daoist core. Everyone at the scene was targeted by the finger strength, and their expressions froze. Then, the finger strength exploded and engulfed the entire ethereal rapture. The ethereal rapture. Destroyed. Next, the bottomless chasm. Lan Yu flipped over another wooden tablet. The bottomless chasm is located deep in the ocean. Looks like I'll have to put in more effort. Chu Kuangren muttered. The descendant self-sword at his waist was unsheathed, and a terrifying purple sword ray covered the sky before disappearing into the void. The next moment. The sword ray traveled millions of miles in an instant and arrived at the surface of the ocean. The entire ocean trembled violently at that moment. Under the majestic and boundless sword pressure, the ocean split to the left and right. A single sword attack, splitting the ocean. The sword ray charged straight into the ocean and arrived at a group of magnificent palaces. Here, the bottomless chasm dweller and the others were already waiting. They used all kinds of techniques in an attempt to disintegrate the sword ray. However, when the sword ray exploded, it turned into millions of fine sword chi that swept across the entire bottomless chasm like a sword chi storm. The bottomless chasm, which had existed for hundreds of thousands of years, was instantly shattered by such terrifying power. In the end, only a few survived the bottomless chasm. Those magnificent palaces were reduced to dust at the bottom of the ocean. A palm attack, a fist attack, a finger attack, and a sword attack. For top-notch orthodoxies were destroyed. All the great ones who witnessed the entire process were so shocked that they were speechless. They felt that it was ridiculous. Chapter 471. Chu Kuangren had activated the 4 Great Emperor techniques and destroyed 4 top-notch orthodoxies. His invincible might shocked all the great ones in the firmament star. The continuous eruptions of energy also attracted the attention of the ancient beings in the ancient forbidden areas. These ancient beings released their spiritual thoughts and began to probe the outside world. Soon, they found out about Chu Kuangren's existence. At that moment, even these ancient beings could not help but be amazed. However, Chu Kuangren did not know about this. Even if he did, he would not care too much. At that moment, his spiritual thoughts were patrolling the ruins of the 4 top-notch orthodoxies, moving valuable items into the Black Heaven sect's treasury using the spatial conveyor skill. This ability was extremely convenient. Wherever his spiritual thoughts went, the spatial conveyor skill would be activated. In other words, other than some special places, Chu Kuangren could land his attacks on a specific place and move the items to a specific location if he wanted to. As expected of a god-tier ability. Chu Kuangren was amazed. Suddenly, he noticed something and let out a soft gasp. When his spiritual thoughts scanned the Acheron manor, he found a black stone tablet in the broken sarcophagus. There was a strange Daoist rhyme flowing on it, and it contained a powerful emperor's aura. His spatial conveyor skill did not work on the stone tablet. Ugh, I was just praising this ability, and now it's giving me a hard time. Chu Kuangren laughed and shook his head. It was not that the spatial conveyor skill was not strong enough, but Chu Kuangren's cultivation level was not strong enough to move this strange stone tablet. He secretly made a mental note of this stone tablet. Alright, there's only one orthodoxy left. Chu Kuangren smiled as he looked at the last wooden tablet in Lan Yu's hand. With a lift of his hand, tens of thousands of runic swords formed, each of which contained a terrifying sage aura. These runic swords were enough to wipe out the Acheron manor and the other three top-notch orthodoxies once again. The Heavenly Golden Palace has a delivery for you. Chu Kuangren chuckled. Tens of thousands of rune swords flew out and pierced through the void. They came to the sky above the Heavenly Golden Palace and crashed down. The violent runic aura shrouded the heavens and earth. Sage ruler Chongqing and the hidden forefathers of the Heavenly Golden Palace all appeared. Defend with everything you've got. Sage ruler Chongqing bellowed. A huge defensive array formation enveloped the divine palace. When the rune swords landed on it, a series of loud rumbling sounds could be heard. Xiao Jingchen, who was standing on a mountain peak, had a rare look of fear in his eyes when he saw the rune swords falling like raindrops. He dared not imagine. What if Chu Kuangren had accepted his challenge back then? He was afraid that he would be smashed to death like Daoist Sha. How could there be such a terrifying sky pride in the firmament star? Even those forbidden geniuses of the 9 heavens might not be able to compare to him. Boom, 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 the Heavenly Golden Palace's defense formation did not last for more than a few breaths before it shattered. Rune swords rained down from the sky. Sage ruler Chongqing and the others roared as they desperately tried to defend themselves. However, even with a few sage rulers attacking at the same time, they were still unable to fend off the runic swords. Countless sword chi landed on the Heavenly Golden Palace, and the sounds of explosions rang out like firecrackers. Smoke and dust flew everywhere as the mountains collapsed and the ground cracked. The disciples of the Divine Palace are innocent. Chu Kuangren, your actions are no different from those of the devil. You shall die a horrible death. Some of the Divine Palace elders roared into the sky. However, they were soon engulfed by the runic swords, and there was no more sound. Suddenly, something was flying towards them from afar. It was a blood-eyed crow that emanated a terrifying aura. In the blink of an eye, it had arrived above the Heavenly Golden Palace. The crow screeched and flapped its wings. Boundless spiritual energy surged and fused with a terrifying Daoist rhyme to form an endless storm. In the blink of an eye, the rune swords that filled the sky shattered one by one. It's Senior Wuxia. Sage ruler Chongqing exclaimed in surprise. Everyone's eyes lit up with hope when they saw Wuxia. Meanwhile, in the Black Heaven sect, Chu Kuangren smirked and placed his hand on the hilt of the Descendant Self-sword at his waist. An interesting person has appeared. I'll be back soon. Chu Kuangren smiled and took a step forward. The void distorted and he disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already above the Heavenly Golden Palace. He looked at Boundary Emperor Wuxia and said, I've told you that no one can protect the Heavenly Golden Palace. If you insist on protecting it, you'll be digging your own grave. You're a supreme sage, so your combat strength is indeed extraordinary. However, you've just used Emperor techniques to destroy 4 orthodoxies. How much spiritual power do you have left in your body? How many of my attacks can you withstand? Boundary Emperor Wuxia's huge body quickly shrunk and transformed back into a graceful beauty. She stared coldly at Chu Kuangren. She had witnessed the terrifying power that Chu Kuangren used to destroy 4 orthodoxies. She had to admit that it was definitely at the level of a boundary emperor. He was definitely one of the top boundary emperors. However, she did not believe that Chu Kuangren still had enough spiritual power to replenish his spiritual power. Even with the help of an emperor-grade supreme elixir, it would take some time for him to replenish his spiritual power. 3 attacks. Chu Kuangren said. You can only take 3 attacks from me. At least you know your limits. Boundary Emperor Wuxia chuckled. No, I mean, I'll kill you in 3 attacks. You. How arrogant. Boundary Emperor Wuxia snorted coldly as a surge of Boundary Emperor aura erupted from her body. It was much stronger than Boundary Emperor Chongquang and Boundary Emperor Haiyu. Not far away, Xiao Jingchen murmured, with such a domineering aura, Boundary Emperor Wuxia could barely be considered a mid-tier Boundary Emperor. Due to the era of Dharma's end, the Boundary Emperors had a hard time becoming emperors. However, that did not mean that a Boundary Emperor's strength was unchanging. Over the years, the Boundary Emperors would always find ways to increase their strength. Some Boundary Emperors' destructive power was not inferior to an emperor's. It was only due to the suppression of Daoist rhymes that they were weaker than an emperor's. Xiao Jingchen looked at Chu Kuangren, who was standing proudly in the sky, with a hint of curiosity in his eyes. How would Chu Kuangren deal with Boundary Emperor Wuxia? Would the spiritual power in his body be enough to deal with Boundary Emperor Wuxia? In the sky, Boundary Emperor Wuxia seemed to have been provoked by Chu Kuangren. She made the first move, and with a wave of her hand, a black ray of light shot out like lightning. That black ray of light contained a powerful Daoist rhyme and spiritual power. Its terrifying strength was many times stronger than a sage ruler's. The descendant self-sword at Chu Kuangren's waist was unsheathed, and a purple sword ray poured out from its blade. It was the Emperor technique, the heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique. That sword attack was the purest form of attack. Chu Kuangren's sword attack collided with that black ray of light. 2 surges of energy collided, and the Daoist rhymes intertwined. Everyone around them was sent flying by the impact, and many buildings were destroyed. Even a sage ruler could not help but be pushed back a few hundred meters. That was only the aftermath of the attack. Chu Kuangren and Boundary Emperor Wuxia were the ones who bore the brunt of the impact. I can't believe he still has such a powerful spiritual power. Boundary Emperor Wuxia was pushed back a few meters by the impact. Although she had a strong Boundary Emperor body, she could not help but bleed from the corner of her mouth. However, when she saw Chu Kuangren, her eyes could not help but narrow. Chu Kuangren was unscathed by that impact. His body was even more terrifying than hers. Chapter 472. A sage's body was already far stronger than an ordinary cultivator's. Moreover, Chu Kuangren had the body of a supreme sage. How terrifying was his physical body! Even a strange beast like Boundary Emperor Wuxia could not compare. It was not an exaggeration to say that even if Chu Kuangren stood still, a sage ruler would not be able to hurt him. Moreover, he had the immortal body. An indestructible supreme sage's body coupled with the immortal body, this combination was almost insane. Chu Kuangren even dared to say that no one below the Emperor realm could kill him. Chu Kuangren relied on his powerful body to withstand the collision of the 2 energies and then flew towards Boundary Emperor Wuxia. Come, take my second sword attack. Chu Kuangren held the descendant self-sword in his hand and a purple sword ray flashed. Boundary Emperor Wuxia felt threatened by that sword ray. She could not take this attack head-on. Boundary Emperor Wuxia instantly made a decision. Her eyes flashed with a scarlet light. This was the special ability of the blood-eyed crow, the blood crow's delusion. It was a divine ability that could confuse one's mind. Even beings of the same cultivation level as Quasi-Emperor Wuxia would be affected. Her strength was not considered top-notch among quasi-emperors, but with this divine ability, there were not many in the Nether Abyss Valley who were willing to provoke her. A scarlet light shot out from Boundary Emperor Wuyue's eyes and shone on Chu Kuangren. From Boundary Emperor Wuyue's perspective, Chu Kuangren's mind would be affected and he would be frozen on the spot, unable to move. At that time, she would be able to end him. However, all she saw was Chu Kuangren's sword slashing out without hesitation. The sword ray poured down and enveloped her completely. He was not affected by the blood crow's delusion at all. How could this be? Boundary Emperor Wuyue's mind raced, but she did not have the time to think because the dazzling purple sword ray was already coming towards her. That one mistake, and the sword ray was already upon her. With a loud slash, Boundary Emperor Wuyue took the full brunt of the sword ray. A large amount of blood splattered from her body, and her entire body was sent flying for thousands of meters before she crashed into a mountain in the distance. A ferocious sword wound extended from Boundary Emperor Wuyue's left shoulder to her waist. It was so deep that her bones could be seen, and it almost cut her in half. "Oh, I can't believe you're still alive. That black dress you're wearing must be pretty too," Chu Kuangren said indifferently. He had clearly felt a strong resistance just now, which had resisted part of the power of his sword light. Clearly, the black dress she was wearing was a defensive quasi-emperor weapon. Otherwise, that sword strike would have sliced her in half. Cough, cough, Boundary Emperor Wuyue coughed out 2 mouthfuls of blood and looked extremely pathetic. She glared at Chu Kuangren with hatred in her eyes. B*****. A powerful Daoist rhyme burst forth from her body as a large amount of spiritual energy surged out, causing the entire Xiantian divine palace to shake. "I'll kill you." "Heh, I've just said that I'll kill you in 3 moves. You still remember that, don't you?" Chu Kuangren suddenly chuckled. Immediately after, a large amount of spiritual qi suddenly surged above Boundary Emperor Wuyue. Countless mysterious runes intertwined, turning into an azure rune. A beam of light descended from the rune and enveloped Boundary Emperor Wuyue. An astonishing pressure enveloped her, causing her entire body to tremble. An instinctive feeling of fear arose in her heart. What kind of rune is this? It's just a lightning talisman, but it's Emperor grade, Chu Kuangren said calmly. The spiritual qi within a 10,000-kilometer radius was sucked dry and channeled into the Emperor-grade lightning talisman. Arcs of electricity danced on the rune's rune, emanating an endless amount of pressure. That pressure was like heavenly might. It was not just an Emperor-grade lightning talisman, but an Emperor-grade lightning talisman that Chu Kuangren had imbued with heavenly punishment Daoist rhyme. At that moment, a familiar aura emanated from the lightning talisman. This aura is heavenly tribulation? How is this possible? This rune contains the aura of heavenly tribulation. I've never heard of such a rune before. Everyone was terrified. Chu Kuangren could activate the power of heavenly tribulations with runes? Impossible. How can anyone in this world control heavenly tribulations? That's the authority of the heavenly Tao. This is impossible. Quasi-Emperor Wuyue's face drained of all color and turned deathly pale. This isn't a heavenly tribulation, but heavenly punishment. And I shall mete out punishment on behalf of the heavens. Chu Kuangren stood in the void with a cold expression on his handsome face. It was as if he was the embodiment of the heavenly Tao itself. A roar came from within the lightning talisman, and a ferocious lightning dragon emerged from it. It stared at Boundary Emperor Wuyue with a pair of emotionless eyes. At that moment, Boundary Emperor Wuyue was trembling helplessly. Anyone who saw her would think that she was a weak and pitiful girl instead of the almighty Boundary Emperor. "Brother, please stop." At that moment, an old voice came from the void. However, Chu Kuangren ignored it and snapped his fingers. Fall. The terrifying lightning dragon descended with the heavenly punishment Daoist rhyme. Accompanied by a shrill scream, Boundary Emperor Wuyue's body disintegrated and turned into ashes within the lightning. When the lightning dissipated, Boundary Emperor Wuxia had completely disappeared. Not even a single piece of her was left. I said I'll kill you within 3 moves. Within 3 moves, I'll scatter your ashes, Chu Kuangren said calmly before he looked up into the sky. Just now, someone had asked him to stop. Brother, you've crossed the line. The old voice spoke again, this time with a hint of anger. Crossed the line? Heh, where are you? Chu Kuangren chuckled and asked. What does that have to do with you? Tell me where you are so I can go and kill you. The moment he said, kill you, thunder and lightning erupted. It was as if the heavens were enraged. Was this a joke? Chu Kuangren and the heavenly golden palace were irreconcilable enemies. Boundary Emperor Wuxia wanted to stop him and kill him. Was it too much to kill her? If the owner of the old voice had not used some method to isolate spiritual thoughts from prying eyes, Chu Kuangren would have been standing right in front of him. The old voice fell silent for a moment before it said, Brother, you're too vicious. I hope you know what to do next. After that, the old voice disappeared. Too vicious. What a joke. Which strong cultivator in this world did not rise by stepping on the bones of others? As long as I have a clear conscience, I don't care if everyone in this world sees me as an evil spirit or an Ashura. Chu Kuangren let out a long roar. Then, he gently raised his hand and looked at the remaining elders and disciples of the heavenly golden palace. Tens of thousands of runic swords once again formed. Chu Kuangren, I'm willing to accept my death. Please spare, sage ruler Chongqing said loudly. However, before he could finish his sentence, Chu Kuangren had already waved his hand. Fall. Wherever the runic sword chi passed, sword chi filled the sky. From the sage ruler elders to the sect leader and servants, not a single one of them survived. It was the annihilation of an entire sect. Not a single one of them would be spared. After that, Chu Kuangren turned around and left. Acheron Manor, Sacred Palace of Death, Ethereal Rapture, Bottomless Chasm, Heavenly Golden Palace. 5 top-notch orthodoxies were annihilated overnight. All the cultivators who witnessed this scene fell silent. On this day, they witnessed the annihilation of the orthodoxies and the birth of a supreme legend. To them, Chu Kuangren was no longer just the number 1 Sky Pride in the world. They could even remove the title of Sky Pride from his title. Number 1 in the world. Chapter 473. After wiping out 5 orthodoxies in a row, Chu Kuangren had unleashed his unparalleled combat strength, shocking the entire firmament star. In an instant, the title of the world's strongest cultivator was crowned on his head. Not just the world's strongest Sky Pride, but the world's strongest cultivator. Chu Kuangren was in the limelight. Meanwhile, above the ruins of Acheron Manor, a black-robed figure suddenly arrived. It was a graceful lady in a black robe with a metal mask on her face. Behind the lady was a cloud of black mist that seemed to be alive as it let out a sound from time to time. Destroying Acheron Manor with a single palm. D****, this Chu Kuangren is really a monster, the black-robed lady mumbled as she looked at the scene. She carefully searched the ruins for a while. F***ck, isn't this Acheron Manor too poor? I can't even find anything good here. How can this be considered a top-notch orthodoxy? Or was it all destroyed with a single palm? Forget it, let's find that thing first. The black-robed lady continued to search the ruins for a while. Relying on her unique senses, she came before the broken sarcophagus and found the strange, pitch-black stone tablet. Her eyes suddenly lit up. Finally found it. The black-robed lady looked at the stone tablet with excitement in her eyes. After so many years, it's finally returned to its rightful owner. Just as she was about to take the stone tablet away, these are my spoils of war. An indifferent voice rang out. Out of nowhere, a figure had appeared on the stone tablet. That person stood on top of the stone tablet. He was dressed in white and had black hair. The black-robed lady's eyes narrowed when she saw him, and she immediately retreated in a defensive stance. Chu Kuangren, this was not good. It was impossible for her to take anything from Chu Kuangren's hands. Roar, an uneasy roar came from the black mist behind the black-robed lady. The black mist expanded by a few times, and a sharp claw reached out. "You dog, behave yourself," the black-robed lady said softly. "Ugh," the being in the black mist let out an aggrieved cry. "Oh, a demonic being." Chu Kuangren activated his eye of revelation and scanned through the lady and the black mist, analyzing their information. Infernal demonic wolf, sage ruler, Zhan Hongying, the princess of the Azura clan, a sage, Zhan Hongying, ranked second on the hidden dragon list. "Tell me everything you know about this stone tablet." Chu Kuangren stood on top of the stone tablet and asked. "If I tell you, can you give me the steel?" Zhan Hongying said. "Sure, as long as you can beat me." Zhan Hongying's face lit up when she heard the first two words, but the latter part completely shattered her delusion. Defeat Chu Kuangren? What a joke. As long as she wasn't stupid, she knew that she was no match for the other party. If the other party's palm came over, she would probably lose half her life. Fellow Daoist Chu, this stone tablet isn't just important to me. It's important to all living beings in the world, because it's related to the devil realm. Oh, tell me about it. In ancient times, the underworld demonic realm had once invaded the firmament star. Later on, an emperor appeared out of nowhere and chased all the demonic creatures back to the demonic realm. He then refined 99 Acheron tablets with an unparalleled technique and sealed the passageway between the demonic realm and the firmament star. Chu Kuangren's expression did not change as he listened to Zhan Hongying. It was hard to tell if he believed her or not. "You're saying that this stone tablet is the Acheron tablet?" "That's right. The 99 Acheron tablets form the Great Acheron Formation that seals the demonic realm's passageway. This is the most important stone tablet, the Acheron Formation's eye. It's also an item that the Ashura tribe has guarded for generations. However, many years ago, the Great Acheron Formation experienced a violent disturbance, and someone took the opportunity to take this stone tablet away. It wasn't until recently that the Acheron Manor appeared. Through the Acheron Formation's eye, we were able to locate the stone tablet. Now, can you please return it to me, Brother Chu?" Zhan Hongying asked. Chu Kuangren pondered for a moment before he said, "It's not that I can't return this stone tablet to you, but you can come back to me when I'm done studying it." He did not completely believe her words. This Acheron tablet contained an extremely strong emperor's aura, and the runes on it were unique as if they contained the Tao of talismans and various emperors' insights. This was an extremely valuable treasure. It was impossible for him to give up on such a treasure with just a few words from Zhan Hongying. He would have to be out of his mind to do something so stupid. In recent years, the demonic realm has been restless and ready to break the seal at any time. If we don't retrieve the Acheron tablet soon, the demonic realm's army will descend upon us again in 10 years at most. 10 years? It won't take that long. Chu Kuangren said. 10 years to comprehend a single stone tablet? He felt that 10 days was too long. Zhan Hongying did not know what to say since she could not convince Chu Kuangren otherwise. "If you have nothing else to say, then we'll meet again." Chu Kuangren kept the stone tablet into his yin and yang ring. Then, his figure disappeared from the spot. Woo woo, the black mist behind Zhan Hongying let out 2 cries. "Idiot, how would I know what to do? The Acheron tablet has fallen into that guy's hands. Unless he doesn't want it anymore, who can take it back from him?" Zhan Hongying said in frustration. "Ah, I'm so angry." Zhan Hongying scratched her head. "I should find someone to fight and vent my anger. I wonder if Xiao Jingchen is still alive in the heavenly golden palace. If I can't find him, I'll have to look for Wang Tianteng. Black Heaven Sect. When Chu Kuangren returned to the Black Heaven Sect, he planned to comprehend the strange stone tablet. However, Elder Ruyan and the white-robed general suddenly came to find him. What happened? Chu Kuangren frowned when he saw the two's serious expressions. Sect leader, I think something happened to Shang Qingxue. Something happened? Yes, we've been trying to contact her for the past few days, but there hasn't been any response, Elder Ruyan said. I want to go out and look for her. The white-robed general said. Let me take a look. Chu Kuangren then spread his spiritual thoughts with the Black Heaven Sect as the center, covering the entire firmament star. Apart from a few hidden places, images of other places flashed across his mind like a slideshow. However, he could not find any trace of Shang Qingxue. There were two explanations for that. First, Shang Qingxue was no longer on firmament star. Of course, the possibility of that was very low. Chu Kuangren was more inclined to the second explanation, which was that Shang Qingxue had either entered a spatial secret realm or was hidden by someone else. Where was the last time you contacted Shang Qingxue? Chu Kuangren asked. It was in the Nebula Prefecture. That's the territory of Parch Prime Palace. Elder Ruyan said. Oh, Parch Prime Palace. That name sounds familiar. Chu Kuangren suddenly took out a letter and said, Isn't Lu Yiqing from Parch Prime Palace the one who infiltrated the Black Heaven Sect? I wanted to ask for a ransom from them, but I didn't expect to be delayed by so many things. Looks like it's time for me to pay them a visit. Chu Kuangren murmured. Chapter 474. Nebula Prefecture, Parch Prime Palace. Inside a great hall. An old man was yelling at a young man. You be **starred, do you know what you're doing? How dare you capture someone from the Black Heaven Sect? Do you have a death wish? Do you want Parch Prime Palace to suffer the same fate as Ethereal Rapture and Acheron Manor? Do you want Chu Kuangren to give us a slap too? The old man was so angry that his face turned red and his chest heaved. He was filled with hatred. Seeing how the young man in front of him was behaving like a yes-man, the old man became even angrier and kicked him to the ground. Why didn't your father shoot you to the wall back then? Father, please calm down. Xian'er didn't do it on purpose. Who knew so many things would happen in just 2 short months? A middle-aged man walked up and said. Another lady walked up and helped the young man up. That's right. If I knew Chu Kuangren could break the heavenly punishment seal and was so powerful, I wouldn't have captured her. The young man, Zhang Xian, said. The old man almost rushed up and slapped him to death when he heard that. See, this is the good son you've spoiled. The old man was the Parch Prime Palace Lord. Everything that happened now was because the Parch Prime Palace Lord's grandson, Zhang Xian, had captured a woman 2 months ago. It was not a rare occurrence. Zhang Xian was a pervert, and that was a well-known fact in the Nebula Prefecture. It was not the first time he had captured women back to the palace. However, the person he captured this time was a little special. That woman was from the Black Heaven Sect. If it were 2 months ago, the Parch Prime Palace Lord would not have cared much about this. After all, 2 months ago, the Black Heaven Sect had secluded themselves from the world, and Chu Kuangren had the heavenly punishment seal on him. Everyone thought he had fallen. So what if he captured one of his disciples? However, things had changed too quickly in just 2 short months. Chu Kuangren entered the world, ascended to the top of the soaring dragon leaderboard, and shocked the world with his brilliant runic techniques. Then, he destroyed the craggy ocean tower, and when he broke the seal, his strength was like that of a living emperor. He suppressed all enemies. The 5 great orthodoxies were wiped out in one day. The world was terrified. Everyone was in awe of Chu Kuangren. Yet, Parch Prime Palace had captured one of his disciples? Was there anything worse than this? Father, it's just a disciple. It shouldn't be a big deal. At the very most, we can just give them some compensation. The middle-aged man said. Bullsh*T, haven't you guys investigated Chu Kuangren's personality? A few years ago, before he had become a saint, how many saints had he killed for the sake of his disciples? How many orthodoxies were destroyed? Now that he's a martial saint, he's invincible. If he were to find out that his disciple has been mistreated here, who knows what kind of trouble he'll cause? Parch Prime Palace Master felt a headache coming on. He glared viciously at Zhang Xian and said coldly, if necessary, I don't mind sacrificing you. Hearing this, Zhang Xian's face paled. I'll ask you again. You didn't do anything to that woman, did you? No, no. Zhang Xian hurriedly shook his head. This woman has a strong and unyielding personality. Every time, she would threaten me with death. I did not dare to act rashly, so I kept her locked in the U prison. Other than me, no one else could enter. As long as you didn't touch her, everything is fine. He was only locked up for a few days, so it shouldn't be a problem. At that moment, a disciple suddenly walked in. Sect leader, Daoist, Daoist is back. Parch Prime Palace Master was delighted. Yiqing is back. Lu Yiqing was a Daoist of Parch Prime Palace. He was also the most outstanding Sky Pride among the younger generation of Parch Prime Palace and was on the Soaring Dragon leaderboard. He had always been the disciple that Parch Prime Palace Master was proud of. Lu Yiqing, that guy is back. Zhang Xian's eyes darkened. Everyone in Parch Prime Palace respected this Daoist. Even his grandfather, the Parch Prime Palace Master, doted on him. On the other hand, other than the title of the sect leader's grandson, no one in Parch Prime Palace respected him. This made him extremely dissatisfied with Lu Yiqing. Naturally, he was unhappy to hear that Lu Yiqing had returned. Lu Yiqing walked into the main hall. Yiqing, you're finally back. I couldn't contact you for the past few days, so I thought something happened to you. Parch Prime Palace Master smiled. Lu Yiqing was a little embarrassed. He had been locked up in the Black Heaven sect for the past few days, and all his belongings had been confiscated. Of course, Parch Prime Palace Master could not contact him. Sect leader, I've brought 2 guests with me this time. Yo, senior brother Lu sure has a wide circle of friends. You brought back Yinli a few days ago. I wonder what kind of impressive people you've brought back this time, Zhang Xian said sarcastically. Be careful with your words, junior brother. I'm not worthy of these 2 people. Lu Yiqing said solemnly. There are people that Lu Yiqing is not worthy of? What a joke. You're a Daoist of Parch Prime Palace. Are you belittling yourself or Parch Prime Palace? Zhang Xian said sarcastically. Alright, shut up. Parch Prime Palace Master scolded Zhang Xian. He then said, Qing, where are they? They're waiting outside the palace. Alright, bring them in. Alright. Lu Yiqing hurriedly walked out. Out of courtesy, those 2 let him in first, but he dared not let them wait for too long. Pfft, look at how anxious he is. If I didn't know better, I would have thought it was some boundary emperor or something. Zhang Xian curled his lips. Yiqing's return this time is a little unusual. Even Parch Prime Palace Master felt that Lu Yiqing's behavior was a little too much. What kind of person was he to be so arrogant? Even if he was the leader of those orthodoxies, there was no need for him to act this way. Parch Prime Palace Master glanced at Zhang Xian's frivolous expression and remembered the trouble he had caused. He snorted coldly and picked up the teacup on the table, wanting to drink some water to calm himself down. At that moment, Lu Yiqing had already led the 2 guests into the palace. One of them was dressed in white and had black hair. He was handsome and otherworldly, while the other had a mask covering his face, revealing only a pair of cold eyes. Kacha, Parch Prime Palace Master's hand trembled, and the teacup fell to the ground. Chu Kuangren. Parch Prime Palace Master exclaimed. He had thought about who Lu Yiqing's guest could be, but he never expected it to be Chu Kuangren. What was he doing here? Did he already know that Zhang Xian had captured his disciple? Chu Kuangren, who had just entered the palace, could not help but feel surprised. No way. His current reputation was indeed quite big. However, there was no need for him to look like this. He was not here to kill, so why did he look so shocked? Especially Zhang Xian. When he heard Chu Kuangren's name, he staggered and almost fell off his chair. How could he be so scared? Something was not right. Chu Kuangren squinted his eyes. I didn't expect the guest Yiqing mentioned to be sect leader Chu. If I knew it was sect leader Chu, I would have welcomed you personally. Parch Prime Palace Master quickly calmed down and smiled. I'm here to visit, but I didn't prepare a visiting card beforehand. I apologize for that. Chu Kuangren smiled. Come, please take a seat. Thank you. May I know the reason for your visit, sect leader Chu? It's like this. One of my disciples has gone missing in Parch Prime Palace's domain. I'm here to borrow Parch Prime Palace's power to help me search for her. I wonder if you're willing to help? As soon as he said that, a strange silence filled the palace. Chapter 475. Upon hearing Chu Kuangren's words, the Parch Prime Palace Lord remained calm and collected. However, Zhang Xian, who was beside him, did not have the same level of composure. Panic was written all over his face, and Chu Kuangren saw it all. There's something fishy going on with this Parch Prime Palace. Chu Kuangren thought to himself. That disciple of mine is a woman named Shang Qingxue. The person beside her is her ancestor, a sage ruler. He has been separated from Shang Qingxue for many years, and his only wish is to see his descendant again. If anything happens to her, he will never let this matter rest, Chu Kuangren said as he scanned the expressions of everyone present. The color on Zhang Xian's face gradually faded, and his face became extremely pale. His body was also trembling uncontrollably. Chu Kuangren saw all these subtle movements. So, where is she? Chu Kuangren let out a fierce roar. His voice was like thunder, and the entire palace shook. Zhang Xian was so shocked that he almost fainted. The Parch Prime Palace Lord's expression changed, and he quickly said, Sect Leader Chu, I won't hide this from you. Your disciple is now in Parch Prime Palace. It's just a small misunderstanding. Please listen to my explanation, Sect Leader Chu. Should I listen to your explanation or your lies? Chu Kuangren said coldly, bring me to her. This way please, Sect Leader Chu. At this point, the Parch Prime Palace Lord no longer held any hope of getting lucky. He brought Chu Kuangren and the white-robed general towards the Serenity Pavilion. The Serenity Pavilion was specially used by Parch Prime Palace to imprison disciples who had made mistakes. It was equipped with countless restrictions that could prevent spiritual thoughts from prying. This also explained why Chu Kuangren could not find Shang Qingxue when he used his spiritual thoughts to search for her. There were many rooms in the Serenity Pavilion. Chu Kuangren and the others entered the Serenity Pavilion, passed through a corridor, and arrived at an exquisite courtyard. When they opened the door to a room, inside, a woman in a blue dress stood up, drew a long sword, and held it against her own neck. If you dare come any closer, I'll. Sect Leader. Before Shang Qingxue could finish her sentence, she saw a familiar figure in front of her. She unconsciously put down the long sword in her hand, and her eyes reddened. Chu Kuangren looked at her with a terrifyingly gloomy expression. Shang Qingxue didn't seem to have suffered much damage other than her aura being weakened and her spiritual power being restricted. However, the moment they opened the door, Chu Kuangren and the white-robed general's instinctive action of unsheathing their swords and threatening to kill themselves had deeply hurt Chu Kuangren and the white-robed general. What was it that made her threaten him with death? What kind of psychological pressure had she been under these days? Chu Kuangren did not have to think too deeply to guess what was going on. Xianxia, the sect leader, has returned to bring you home. Chu Kuangren took a deep breath and tried his best to calm his expression. Sect leader. Xianxia could not hold it in any longer. She threw herself at him, tears streaming down her cheeks. Chu Kuangren had some understanding of Xianxia. Back then, she was able to grit her teeth and persevere through his hellish training. Now that she saw him, she couldn't help but cry. It was easy to imagine the grievances he had suffered in the past few days. After a while, Xianxia let go of Chu Kuangren. She rubbed her eyes and tried to calm herself down. Sect leader, how did you find me? We'll talk about this later. First, tell me, who imprisoned you here? Chu Kuangren asked. Xianxia told him everything that had happened. 2 months ago, she passed by this place while training and happened to bump into Parchprime Palace's Zhang Xian. Lusting after her beauty, he tricked her into coming to Parchprime Palace and then poisoned her to seal her spiritual power. In these 2 months, she had been threatening death, relying on the meager amount of spiritual energy in her body to persevere. She had not taken a single drop of water or rice. She did not even dare to sleep, afraid that Zhang Xian would take advantage of her. Zhang Xian was not in a hurry either. Instead, he continued to play with her. He was certain that she would not last much longer. It was at this moment that Chu Kuangren arrived. However, Chu Kuangren knew that even if he did not come, Zhang Xian would not dare to hurt Xianxia. That was because the news of him breaking the heavenly punishment seal had spread like wildfire. Even so, Zhang Xian still had to pay the price. Sect leader Zhang, I don't think I need to tell you what to do. I'm sure you know what to do, Chu Kuangren said coldly. Sect leader Chu, since Miss Shang isn't hurt, Parchprime Palace is willing to compensate her. Please forgive her, sect leader Chu. The Parchprime Palace lord said. After all, Zhang Xian was his grandson. He would save him if he could. I'm not going to repeat myself. Unless you want the entire Parchprime Palace to perish with him? Chu Kuangren's tone darkened. The Parchprime Palace lord was speechless. I understand. Not long after, Zhang Xian was brought before Chu Kuangren and the others. Sect leader Chu, please spare my life. I won't do it again. Zhang Xian kept kowtowing and begging for mercy. Xianxia, I'll leave this to you. Without hesitation, Xianxia drew her long sword. With a sword ray, Zhang Xian's head fell to the ground and spun twice. 2 months of fear and anxiety seemed to have been vented with that one sword attack. Xianxia, who had not eaten or drunk for 2 months and had her spiritual power sealed, finally could not take it anymore and fainted. The white-robed general was 1 step ahead of Chu Kuangren to help her up. Looking at her face, a rare hint of gentleness appeared in the white-robed general's cold eyes. You look so much like Yu back then. Yu was the princess of the Lu kingdom, the lover of the white-robed general. Take her away to rest. All right. After the white-robed general left, Chu Kuangren did not even look at the corpse on the ground. Instead, he took out a letter and handed it to the Parchprime Palace lord. Besides looking for the Black Heaven sect's disciples, there's another matter. That is about Lu Yiqing sneaking into the Black Heaven sect and being caught red-handed by me. If you want to redeem him, you'll have to pay a ransom. Beside him, Lu Yiqing smiled bitterly. He knew this was not the end of it. The Parchprime Palace lord was dumbfounded as he looked at the letter in his hand. What's going on? Chu Kuangren had killed his own grandson in Parchprime Palace, and now he wanted them to pay a ransom? What kind of logic is this? Besides that, although Xianxia is fine, she must have suffered a lot over the past few months. She must be compensated for her psychological damage. What? There's psychological damage too? The Parch Prime Palace Lord was stunned, but when he saw Chu Kuangren's cold gaze, he lost all his temper. What else could he do? Of course, he had to pay. Unless Parch Prime Palace wanted to be like the other orthodoxies and take a hit. However, they did not dare to do that. A day later, Chu Kuangren had obtained a huge amount of cultivation resources, which almost emptied out the entire desolate Prime sect's fortune. After that, Chu Kuangren and the others were ready to return to the sect. Just as they stepped out of the Parch Prime sect, they saw a pillar of light piercing through the clouds, and a powerful energy wave erupted. Oh, another opportunity of fortune has appeared? But I don't sense any Emperor's aura. I wonder what kind of opportunity of fortune this is. Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised as he stood on the tower. Beside him, the white-robed general hesitated before he said, "Sect leader, I'd like to go and have a look." "Wait a minute, what did you call me?" Chu Kuangren said with a surprised look. "Since my descendants are in the Black Heaven sect, and you saved my life, it's only right for me to call you sect leader. Don't tell me you don't want me to join." "Of course not. You're more than welcome," Chu Kuangren said. Chapter 476. The vast might covered the Nebula Dao province, and the white-robed general expressed his desire to take a look. "Qingxue has not woken up yet. This is my first time meeting her, so I wanted to prepare a greeting gift for her. This opportunity is just right." Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. Sure. He was also quite interested in this opportunity. Under the detection of the treasure-seeking technique, a large amount of information about the treasure rushed towards him. Oh, there are quite a lot of them. Chu Kuangren was a little surprised. Although he did not care about most of the things, there were still some good things. For example, in the perception of the treasure-seeking technique, he discovered several quasi-emperor-level treasures. There was even an emperor-level treasure. Congratulations! You have obtained the legendary spell array, Sealing Sword Array. On his way to the location of the opportunity of fortune, Chu Kuangren drew a prize as usual, and he was quite satisfied with the prize he received. Although he already had many legendary-level rewards, such as imperial scriptures, imperial weapons, sword formations, etc. But who would complain about having too many legendary prizes? The Sealing Sword Formation was similar to the Four Seasons Sword Formation. It was an extremely powerful sword formation, but its focus was different. The Four Seasons Sword Formation focused on offense, while the Sealing Sword Formation focused on sealing. After Chu Kuangren retrieved the formation, he no longer paid any attention to it. Very soon, he and the white-robed general arrived at the location of the fortuitous opportunity. It was a huge volcano crater. Incomparably hot fire-type energy filled the surroundings. Many cultivators were rushing over. This is a volcano nourished by the earth veins. Some sharp-eyed cultivators recognized this opportunity. Rumor has it that earth veins are divided into non-attribute earth veins and attribute earth veins. Among them, attribute earth veins can easily produce all kinds of treasures. This volcano is connected to a fire attribute earth vein, and it seems to be of a very high grade. This volcano has accumulated countless years of fire attribute earth chi, and today, it has finally reached its limit and is ready to erupt. Palace Master Parch Prime said with great knowledge. He had also noticed Chu Kuangren and the white-robed general who were not too far away. His expression changed slightly, but he pretended not to see them. Chu Kuangren did not care about him either. His gaze swept across the group of cultivators who had arrived at the volcano. The Eye of Revelation activated. He didn't put most cultivators in his eyes. However, there were some cultivators who caught his attention. They were the prodigies on the Hidden Dragon list. To be more precise, they were the top 10 prodigies on the Hidden Dragon roll. Besides Zhan Hongying, whom Chu Kuangren previously met at Acheron Manor, there were also Xiao Jingchen, Wang Tianteng, Yu Ling, and a few others. These people were all from ancient or even ancient orthodoxies. What surprised Chu Kuangren the most was Xiao Jingchen. This third-ranked skypride on the soaring dragon leaderboard was not only a descendant of the ancient by family of the Nine Heavens, but he was also the first heavenly golden imperial physique in the heavenly golden palace tens of thousands of years ago. He was also the person who had challenged him previously. He's lucky to have survived the heavenly golden palace. Did he sneak away while I was fighting Boundary Emperor Wuyue? Chu Kuangren murmured. He looked at Xiao Jingchen with a gleam in his eyes as if he was considering if he should kill him. Xiao Jingchen, who was being stared at by Chu Kuangren, could not help but shudder. He stood a distance away and did not dare to look Chu Kuangren in the eye. Even though his orthodoxy had been destroyed, he did not dare to show even the slightest bit of hostility. He was afraid that Chu Kuangren would suddenly find him and kill him. To his relief, Chu Kuangren looked away after a few glances at him. It was as if Chu Kuangren could not be bothered with him. It was as if Chu Kuangren thought that Xiao Jingchen was too weak to fight. This person is too terrifying. I'm no match for him now. If I can avoid conflict, it's best not to provoke him. Xiao Jingchen thought to himself. To him, staying alive was the way to go. It was not embarrassing to be a coward at a time like this. Chu Kuangren took in all of Xiao Jingchen's expressions and could roughly guess what he was thinking. To kill or not to kill, it was all up to Chu Kuangren. To him, killing Xiao Jingchen was as easy as lifting his hand. It was effortless. If that was the case, he might as well keep him alive. Who knew, he might be of some use in the future. Ancient orthodoxies, by family, should pay more attention to the Nine Heavens. All the emperors are there. Chu Kuangren thought to himself. While Chu Kuangren was observing the Nine Heaven skyprides, the other Nine Heaven skyprides were also observing him with fear and seriousness. Is that Chu Kuangren? Wang Tianting from the ancient Wang family looked at Chu Kuangren and said in a serious tone. This young man is really good looking. A voluptuous woman licked her red lips and said. She looked at Chu Kuangren with a lustful look in her eyes. Behind her, 5 fiery red tails were unconsciously wagging. She was Hu Meiren, a skypride from the ancient heavenly fox tribe. A coquettish fox. Wang Tianting glanced at her and snorted. TSK, Chu Kuangren. This person may be the biggest obstacle in the human realm. A young man hidden under a cloak looked up and glanced at Chu Kuangren before quickly retracting his gaze. This person was not from the Nine Heavens, nor was he from the firmament star. Instead, he was a skypride from the underworld demonic realm, Tuba. Buzz buzz buzz, at that moment, the volcano started to shake violently. A huge amount of lava gushed out. Along with the eruption of lava, many treasures from the earth veins were sent flying in all directions due to the impact of the volcano's eruption. All the skyprides and sages immediately made their moves to snatch them. Most of these treasures were sage-grade treasures, which were extremely rare. These treasures are mine. Wang Tianting laughed out loud. He took a step forward and reached out with his 5 fingers, which turned into a giant colorful spiritual power hand that contained the Daoist rhymes of the 5 elements. It was a terrifying sight. It was a very powerful boundary emperor technique. With a single grab, more than 10 treasures were caught in his hand. The cultivators who tried to snatch the treasures along the way were all sent flying by the giant hand. Pippi, go for this old lady. Zhan Hongying let out a soft roar. The black mist behind her let out a low growl before it started to move and dashed towards those treasures. During that process, the black mist dissipated, revealing a ferocious black demonic wolf. It opened its mouth wide and bit on the treasures before it skillfully placed them into a yin and yang ring on its neck. An underworld demonic wolf? Judging from its aura, this is the highest-ranked bloodline, the Wolf King bloodline. Tuba from the demonic realm looked at Zhan Hongying in shock. He initially wanted to attack, but he immediately dismissed the idea. This person in front of him must be from that tribe. If she found out that he was from the demonic realm, a fierce battle would be inevitable. For the sake of the bigger picture, he had to endure it for now. On the other side, Hu Marin's foxtails swayed behind her, and a strange seductive power emanated from her. The cultivators who had obtained the treasures around her became mesmerized, and they willingly handed over their treasures. "Thank you, everyone." Hu Marin chuckled. The fact that she had obtained a bunch of treasures so effortlessly made many cultivators fearful. They cursed her for being a demonic woman, but their eyes lingered on her sexy body, unwilling to leave. All the Sky Prides used their techniques to fight for the treasures. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren and the white-robed general stood in the air without moving. Chapter 477. Chu Kuangren and the white-robed general stood in the air. They did not move. That was because the treasures that erupted from the volcano were mostly ordinary sage-level treasures. They were not interested in them at all. Chu Kuangren had just destroyed the 5 great orthodoxies and looted countless treasures. In addition to the treasures he had accumulated previously, the Black Heaven sect now had too many sage-level treasures. Chu Kuangren looked at these treasures with a lack of interest. After the volcano erupted for the first time, dozens of sage-level treasures appeared. Most of them were obtained by the Sky Prides and powerful sages. After everyone was done fighting for the treasures, the volcano erupted for the second time. This time, most of the treasures that appeared were sage-level treasures as well. However, their quality was slightly better than the previous ones. They could be considered great sage-level treasures. Many people continued to fight for them. Suddenly, Chu Kuangren's expression changed slightly. The real treasures have appeared. The volcano erupted for the third time. This time, apart from more than 10 sage-level treasures, there were also 2 boundary emperors. They were 2 fiery red crystals that emanated an incredibly dense fire-based Daoist rhyme. This is an earth flame crystal. For cultivators who cultivate the Tao of fire, this is definitely a rare treasure. If I have this earth flame crystal, I can definitely break through to become a sage ruler. A few powerful sages immediately made their moves. The Sky Prides also joined in the fight. Wang Tianteng, in particular, looked like he was determined to get it. The 5 elements Tao that he cultivated included fire-based Tao. "This crystal is mine." With a lift of his hand, a loud explosion was heard. The 5-colored ray of light transformed into a horrifying giant hand that sent the sages flying. Wang Tianteng then went straight for the earth flame crystal. However, at that moment, a strange fluctuation appeared. All Wang Tianteng saw was that the earth flame crystal that he was about to obtain disappeared into thin air. It disappeared right under everyone's noses. What happened? Where is it? Suddenly, someone exclaimed. The earth flame crystal that disappeared into thin air reappeared in Chu Kuangren's hand. He was casually playing with it. How did he do that? It's a spatial technique. Wang Tianteng said. He was the closest to the earth flame crystal, so he sensed the spatial fluctuation. Many others did the same. Chu Kuangren must be relying on this spatial technique to attack the 5 great orthodoxies from 1,000,000 kilometers away. Spatial techniques are extremely rare. At most, cultivators can simply use the power of space, but it's extremely difficult to use it, let alone someone like him who can use it so skillfully. This fellow has too many tricks up his sleeves. Everyone discussed in low voices, feeling somewhat helpless. Chu Kuangren was right in front of them. If he wanted to compete with them, they would not stand a chance. The most they could do was snatch the things that Chu Kuangren did not want. This feeling was too suffocating. Just as everyone was exclaiming in admiration, the volcano erupted again. This time, more quasi-emperor level treasures appeared. Quick, do it. However, Before they could even get close, Chu Kuangren had already used his spatial conveyor skill to move those boundary emperor-grade treasures in front of him. F***CK. How are we supposed to play like this? Isn't this spatial technique a little too overpowered? Everyone's faces darkened at that. As long as Chu Kuangren wanted it, they could not even get a single strand of it. Chu Kuangren, don't you think you've gone too far by not leaving us any good stuff? One of the sages could not help but say. Chu Kuangren looked at that sage as if he was looking at an idiot. You're not happy with this? I believe many of you here have the same thought as me. Upon hearing that, the people who were standing close to him quickly retreated. I'm not. I didn't. Don't spout nonsense. That's right. Why would we be unhappy? Treasures should belong to those who are capable. Since Brother Chu has the ability, it's only natural for him to take it. Everyone glared at that sage as if they wanted to devour him. F***CKU. You can have a death wish, but don't drag us down with you. Like you? Who's as stupid as you to face Chu Kuangren head-on? Look, no one has any objections except for you. Don't you think it's your fault? Chu Kuangren said. You guys, that sage looked around and saw that no one stood up for him. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth, but he still quietly walked back to the crowd. The current Chu Kuangren was like the sun in the sky. Who would dare to go against him? Was he not afraid that one day, he would be struck by a palm from the sky? At that moment, the surrounding spiritual chi suddenly surged violently and gathered towards the volcano's crater. Everyone's attention was attracted to it. A large amount of lava gushed out. The number of treasures that far exceeded the previous ones was shot out. The crowd began to fight for them. This time, they were aiming for the sage-grade treasures. As for the boundary emperor treasures, no one dared to fight for them anymore. No one could win against Chu Kuangren. They could only fight for the sage-grade treasures that he was not interested in. Look. I think there's something in that lava. Suddenly, some of the cultivators noticed that at the bottom of the volcano, there was a ball of blazing golden light that was emanating waves of emperor-grade energy. Chu Kuangren activated his spiritual thought. He realized that when his spiritual thought got close to that golden light, it was burned to ashes by a domineering heat. That heat could even burn his spiritual thought. Interesting, Chu Kuangren said with interest. The other's eyes were burning with passion. An emperor-grade treasure. It's definitely an emperor-grade treasure. It was born from the lava that was nourished by the earth chi. Could it be the legendary earthen core flame? An emperor-grade earthen core flame at that. Some of the sky prides were ready to fight for it. Although they knew that they could not win against Chu Kuangren, they still wanted to give it a try. After all, that was the legendary emperor flame. Even in the 9 heavens, emperor flames were very rare. Every cultivator who could control an emperor flame had combat strength that far surpassed their peers. Chirp, at that moment, a sharp screech could be heard from afar. The distant sky was dyed red by the fiery light, and a beautiful godly phoenix with a blood-red body flew over. Wherever it passed, thousands of beasts prostrated themselves on the ground. That was the power of a divine beast. Lil Red, why is she here? Chu Kuangren was surprised. Brother, I sensed a powerful fire-based energy. This energy will be of great help to me, so I came. The godly phoenix Lil Red came before Chu Kuangren and said. The sky prides of the 9 heavens could not help but exclaim when they saw the godly phoenix. A divine beast? The lower realm has given birth to a divine beast? The rumors are true. The godly phoenix has acknowledged Chu Kuangren as its master. His luck is just too terrifying. That's a divine beast we're talking about. Even the ancient remnant beasts are inferior to it. When it grows up, it'll at least become a great emperor. No, according to the ancient legends, even a great emperor would have to retreat when faced with a divine beast that has grown up. Xiao Jingchen, Wang Tianteng, and the others looked at Chu Kuangren with envy and jealousy. Chu Kuangren was already a supreme sage, and now the godly phoenix had acknowledged him as its master. Could he be the legendary child of destiny? Compared to him, the so-called sky prides like them did not even deserve to carry his shoes. Chapter 478. Tisk, if I can rope such a man to my side, he will definitely be a great help to me. Hu Meiren, the pride of the 9 heavens, licked her lips and thought to herself. She had to admit that Chu Kuangren really moved her heart. Her celestial appearance was extraordinary and refined. He was extremely powerful and had even been recognized by the divine phoenix as its master. Although he came from the lower domain, his background was not as powerful as those ancient orthodoxies. However, if such a genius could come to the 9 skies, there would definitely be a lot of people who wanted to rope him in, and he would be able to choose from them. The Heavenly Fox clan was not a human clan. However, he did not mind taking in such a human son-in-law. Not far away, Zhan Hongying clicked her tongue in wonder and said, "That fox seems to have taken a liking to that monster. Tisk, it's so smelly." Then, as if she thought of something, she said to the demonic hell wolf beside her, "Do you think I can get the Yellow Springs tablet back with my beauty?" The demon wolf was obviously stunned. It tilted its head and revealed a human-like suspicion in its eyes. It seemed to be saying, "You? F***ck, not giving me any face at all." Zhan Hongying angrily punched the demon wolf's head. Howl, in the sky. Chu Kuangren turned a blind eye to everyone's strange gazes. "Go ahead and seize the opportunity," Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Anyway, he was going to take this emperor's fire away anyway. Since this emperor's fire was of great use to divine phoenix Xiaohong, he would let it use it. Alright. The divine phoenix circled in the air for a while before diving down towards the mouth of the volcano. It ignored the scorching lava and plunged in. Chu Kuangren stood tall at the mouth of the volcano like a divine sword. None of the cultivators around him dared to make a move. This scene gave Chu Kuangren an inexplicable sense of familiarity. When Lil Red was first born, it was also at the mouth of a volcano. At that time, there were countless beasts lurking around, and the scene was pretty much the same as now. Chu Kuangren chuckled as he recalled something. Hearing his words, everyone's faces darkened. What does that mean? Was he comparing them to a group of demonic beasts? Hu Meiren did not think much of it. She was originally a beast, but how could her bloodline be compared to those lowly demonic beasts? The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. In the lava, the godly phoenix transformed into a beam of red light and arrived before the ball of golden light, which was the arch fire. It swallowed it whole. This left many cultivators speechless. One had to know that that was an emperor flame. Even if a sage were to get close to it, he or she would be burnt into ashes with ease. However, the divine phoenix had swallowed it whole. A divine beast is indeed a divine beast. It is indeed very mystical. The divine phoenix is a fire elemental divine beast. Even a sage king has to approach this the arch fire carefully. Only she would dare to swallow it in this world. A cultivator exclaimed in admiration. With Chu Kuangren around and the godly phoenix swallowing the emperor flame in one gulp, everyone had given up on the idea of obtaining the emperor flame. They were still here because they wanted to see what would happen to the divine phoenix after it swallowed the fire. Time flew by. After the divine phoenix swallowed the arch fire, it stayed in the lava. Boom, boom, at this moment, the sky suddenly flashed with lightning and thunder. A burst of incomparably gorgeous rainbow light appeared. Layers of cloud surged and gathered at the mouth of the volcano, forming a tribulation cloud with a diameter of several dozen li. Heavenly tribulation. Could this be the divine phoenix's sage heavenly tribulation? This is the 9-colored heavenly tribulation. Everyone exclaimed. Meanwhile, Xiao Jingchen, Zhan Hongying, and the others could not help but feel the domineering aura of the heavenly tribulation. This heavenly tribulation was much stronger than theirs. They only had the 7-colored heavenly tribulation. However, this was the rare 9-colored heavenly tribulation. The 9-colored heavenly tribulation is exactly the same as the one Chu Kuangren faced back then. As expected of a divine beast. That's not right. This 9-colored heavenly tribulation is much weaker than the one Chu Kuangren faced back then. Although the domineering aura is strong, it's not as terrifying as it was back then. Duh, Chu Kuangren dragged hundreds of thousands of people along with him. How can that be compared? Not only did he attract the heavenly tribulation, but he also attracted the heavenly punishment. The crowd discussed among themselves. Some of them recalled the scene of Chu Kuangren's ascension a few years ago. That magnificent feat of dragging hundreds of thousands of people along with him was still unforgettable. It was the only one in history. Xiao Jingchen, Zhan Hongying, and the others were speechless. Dragging hundreds of thousands of people along with him? What a magnificent feat it was. Unfortunately, they did not get to witness it with their own eyes. Boom! At this moment, a red light suddenly rose from the mouth of the volcano. It was the godly phoenix. The godly phoenix soared in the sky and let out a piercing screech at the 9-colored heavenly tribulation. The might of a divine beast swept across the world. Chu Kuangren stood in the sky and looked at the godly phoenix that was releasing its boundless divine aura. He suddenly felt like his daughter had grown up. Aren't you worried about her? Beside him, the white-robed general asked Chu Kuangren curiously. She'll have to face this sooner or later. I believe she'll be able to get through this safely. She's a divine beast after all. Chu Kuangren laughed. The light of the heavenly tribulation descended and enveloped the godly phoenix. A tribulation lightning bolt as thick as a water bucket suddenly struck down. The godly phoenix flapped her wings and shattered that powerful tribulation lightning bolt with her bare wings. Her physical strength was truly powerful. Following that, the second, third, and fourth tribulation lightning bolts struck down one after another. However, they were all blocked by the godly phoenix without exception. It was not until the 6th tribulation lightning bolt descended that a gigantic colorful lightning python descended. Only then did the godly phoenix's body ignite with surges of golden flames. She had refined most of the emperor flames that she had swallowed earlier and integrated it into her own flames, making them much stronger. As the flames burned on the surface of her body, they collided with the lightning python. The lightning python dissipated. The godly phoenix returned to the mouth of the volcano, her golden eyes staring at the tribulation clouds in the sky. The flames on her body burned as her Daoist rhyme rose steadily. The 7th tribulation lightning was brewing. A ferocious lightning dragon was gradually formed. Come! The godly phoenix said loudly. Chu Kuangren did not know if it was an illusion, but he felt that her voice had changed a little. It sounded more mature. Roar! The lightning python let out an angry roar and suddenly descended. The flames on the godly phoenix's body burned fiercely, condensing into a gigantic fireball that flew out and collided with the lightning python. Amidst the explosion, the flames and lightning collided and spread out in all directions. The lava in the volcano tumbled and continuously spewed out. The 7th tribulation lightning was over. What followed was the 8th tribulation lightning. The 8th tribulation lightning was even more powerful. Even with the godly phoenix's strength, it still suffered quite a bit of damage. A large number of feathers fell off and phoenix blood splattered everywhere. The cultivators present could not help but gulp when they saw the feathers and phoenix blood. Those were all incredible treasures. However, under the 9-colored heavenly tribulation, no one dared to act rashly. Chu Kuangren watched from afar. He was the person closest to the heavenly tribulation, and when he saw that the godly phoenix was injured, a hint of heartache appeared in his eyes. He gripped the descendant self-sword at his waist tightly. If the godly phoenix showed signs of not being able to withstand the ninth tribulation lightning, he would attack without hesitation. Although that would disrupt the godly phoenix's ascension and prevent her foundation from reaching a perfect state, it was still better than losing her life. "Brother, I can do it." At that moment, the godly phoenix spoke. She stood up and looked at the tribulation clouds that were brewing the last tribulation lightning with a determined look on her face. Even though she was injured, her pride did not diminish. After all, she was a supreme divine beast. Chapter 479. The godly phoenix stood proudly as her body surged with divine radiance. In the sky, the ninth tribulation lightning had already struck down from the nine-colored tribulation cloud, forming a huge lightning pillar that enveloped the godly phoenix. Boundless lightning energy wreaked havoc on the divine phoenix's body, constantly destroying it. Large amounts of flames surged on her body to resist the tribulation lightning. The godly phoenix's body continued to crack, and blood splattered everywhere. However, she still persevered. Her golden eyes were filled with determination as the spiritual power within her body surged to fight against the tribulation lightning. Finally, the tribulation lightning dissipated. The godly phoenix fell to the ground, her body charred black. Her original noble appearance was nowhere to be seen. She was already on her last breath. Chu Kuangren breathed a sigh of relief. As long as the godly phoenix was not dead, he could use the spring breeze healing technique to heal her. Just as he was about to go up, the godly phoenix stopped him with a stare. Then, the godly phoenix's head tilted to the side as she ended her own life. She fell to the ground, no longer emitting any aura. Dead? The divine beast is dead? Are you kidding me? Even a divine beast would not be able to survive such a terrifying nine-colored heavenly tribulation. Sigh, what a shame. That was a divine beast we're talking about. The crowd discussed among themselves as they looked at the godly phoenix with pity. Some of them looked at the godly phoenix's body with fiery eyes. Even if it was a dead divine beast, it was still a divine beast. The energy contained in its body was definitely a treasure to any cultivator. The phoenix marrow, blood, and guts were all priceless items. Sect leader, White-Robe General walked up to Chu Kuangren, wanting to comfort him. However, he was surprised to find Chu Kuangren standing there calmly. He was not as sad as he imagined. Could it be that Chu Kuangren's relationship with the godly phoenix was not as good as he thought? Nirvana state, progress 51%, Daoist runes circulated in Chu Kuangren's eyes. The Eye of Revelation had obtained the godly phoenix's current status. That was why he was not sad. The godly phoenix was not dead yet. She was reborn. Boom! At that moment, a loud explosion came from the sky. A pitch-black giant hand descended and grabbed the godly phoenix. That gigantic hand contained an extremely terrifying domineering aura, and the windstorm it stirred up was enough to force White-Robe General, who was standing beside Chu Kuangren, to retreat by nearly 100 meters. The surrounding cultivators, including the geniuses from the nine heavens, backed away. Their expressions changed slightly when they saw the giant hand descending from the sky. This pressure, it's a quasi-emperor. A quasi-emperor has made his move. He wants the divine phoenix's corpse. The crowd turned pale with fright. He did not expect the fall of the divine phoenix to attract the covetous eyes of a quasi-emperor. Just as the giant hand was suppressing everything and forcing everyone back, humph. A cold snort sounded. Chu Kuangren stood tall and straight like a sword, unmoving like a mountain. He raised his hand slightly and casually, but when he struck out with his palm, a terrifying storm swept out in all directions, shaking the entire volcano. A vast golden palm print condensed and blasted towards the giant black hand. When the two forces collided, the impact caused the entire volcano to crack open. The mountains and rivers within 10,000 kilometers trembled. A muffled groan came from the void. A black-robed old man was knocked out of the void. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation. Bai Liyin, Boundary Emperor, cultivates the dark flaming sky-devouring art, which allows one to devour fire attribute treasures to increase their strength, devouring fire attribute treasures to increase his strength. No wonder he would attack the godly phoenix. If one were to ask what the most precious fire attribute treasures in this world were, what could possibly compare to the godly phoenix's corpse? The supreme sage's strength is indeed formidable. Boundary Emperor Bai Liyin looked at Chu Kuangren with a hint of awe in his eyes. The supreme sage had always existed in ancient legends. Now that he had appeared in this world, the strength he displayed was indeed terrifying. Bai Liyin's cultivation level was already considered one of the best among the boundary emperors, but he was at a disadvantage when he clashed with Chu Kuangren earlier. How do you want to die for coveting the godly phoenix? Chu Kuangren said indifferently. The descendant's self-sword at his waist revealed half of its blade, and a chilling sword-based Daoist rhyme swept out in all directions, engulfing Bai Liyin. Sect leader Chu, why are you so angry? This godly phoenix is already dead. I'm willing to exchange it with some treasures. What do you think? Bai Liyin said. Not long after he woke up from the forbidden area, he sensed the opportunity of fortune in this volcano eruption, so he came here to take a look. He did not expect to encounter a godly phoenix ascension here. This godly phoenix's body would be of great help to him. If he could refine it, his strength and potential would increase by leaps and bounds. It would not be impossible for him to become the strongest cultivator below the emperors. How could he miss out on such an opportunity of fortune? Even 10 of your lives won't be enough to exchange for a single feather of the godly phoenix. Chu Kuangren said coldly. The descendant's self-sword at his waist was instantly unsheathed, and a purple sword ray shot out. Its peerlessly sharp Daoist rhyme instantly locked onto Bai Liyin. Bai Liyin did not expect Chu Kuangren to attack without hesitation. He quickly blocked the attack. The surrounding spiritual qi surged. This was a volcano, so the fire attribute qi was extremely dense. To Bai Liyin, this was the best battlefield. As he attacked with his palm, the flow of flames converged into a storm. The sword and palm collided. Both of them were forced back. Although most of the impact was borne by the two of them, the energy that was released still sent many cultivators at the scene flying. Bai Liyin's body trembled from the impact. Although he was a boundary emperor, he still felt a little short of breath. However, when he saw that Chu Kuangren was not affected at all, he could not help but be speechless. How could this guy's sage body be so powerful? Dark flames engulf. Bai Liyin raised his hand and absorbed the fire attribute spiritual qi from the surroundings, which turned into streaks of black flames in the void. The flames condensed into a monstrous flow of flames, and an extremely domineering Daoist rhyme filled the air as it headed towards Chu Kuangren to devour him. Heaven-slaying sword drawing technique. Chu Kuangren raised his hand and unleashed a sword attack. That sword attack contained an even more domineering aura, and it even contained an extremely powerful heavenly punishment Daoist rhyme. With the support of the heavenly punishment Daoist rhyme, the power of Chu Kuangren's sword attack was raised to an extremely terrifying level. The sword qi tore apart the terrifying black flames in an instant. Bai Liyin's eyes narrowed, and he struck out with both his palms at the same time. Although he barely managed to block the sword light, a bloody wound appeared on his palms. What a powerful sword ray! What's that Daoist rhyme? My Daoist rhyme is being suppressed by it. It's like heavenly might? Is this guy's strength really that strong? A series of question marks flashed across Bai Liyin's mind. However, Bai Liyin did not have time to think as the sword qi rushed towards him. His Daoist rhyme was being suppressed by the heavenly punishment Daoist rhyme, and he could not overpower Chu Kuangren in terms of foundation. It did not take long for him to retreat. D***MN. It's not good for me if this goes on. Bai Lin thought to himself. Although it was embarrassing for a boundary emperor like him to be suppressed by a sage, his life was of course more important than his pride. In a flash, his figure turned into a ray of fire and flew into the distance. Obviously, he knew that he was no match for Chu Kuangren, so he fled. Where do you think you're going? Chu Kuangren let out an indifferent roar. His spiritual thoughts surged, and a huge silver-white talisman appeared in the void. It was the spatial freeze rune. Chapter 480. Bai Lin was ready to escape, but Chu Kuangren's spatial freeze rune slowed him down tremendously. What? Bai Lin's expression changed. He felt as if the space around him had turned into a quagmire. If it were not for his boundary emperor cultivation level, he would have been frozen in midair. However, even if he could move, his speed was like that of a snail in Chu Kuangren's eyes. Stay. Chu Kuangren sneered and swung the descendant self-sword in his hand. A piercingly cold sword-based Daoist rhyme surged and engulfed Bai Lin in the blink of an eye. The piercingly cold Dao runes mixed with powerful spiritual power were wantonly cutting his body. The dignified quasi-emperor let out a blood-curdling scream at this moment. He desperately urged his spiritual power to cover the surface of his body with the flow of fire, trying to use this method to block the invasion of the sword chi. However, everything he did was futile. The power of the sword chi was far beyond his imagination. That was a sword chi that was infused with the heavenly punishment Daoist rhyme. No, if this goes on, I'll really die here. I've only just awakened. How can I die here? I can't let this happen. A look of determination appeared in Bai Lin's eyes. His body suddenly exploded, and a bloody mist blossomed in the air like a demonic flower. However, an unimaginably powerful and terrifying flow of fire swept out immediately after. The expressions of the spectators in the surroundings changed drastically when they saw the flame current sweeping out. This power was enough to be fatal even to a saint king. This is bad. Retreat. A boundary emperor was forced to self-destruct? This is too terrifying. Faced with the oncoming flame flow, everyone retreated frantically. What they suffered was only the aftermath. Chu Kuangren was the first to bear the brunt of Bai Lin's self-destruction. Using self-destruction to break through the seal of the freeze rune is quite daring. However, don't you think you can escape death just like that? You must be dreaming. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. He raised his hand and gathered runes to form an indestructible runic barrier in front of him, blocking all the flame flow. Then, he saw a ray of light dashing out from the flame flow and into the distance. That was Bai Lin's spiritual body. Chu Kuangren's spiritual thought surged out, intending to use the spatial conveyor technique to catch up. However, as if he suddenly thought of something, he purposely slowed down the speed of his spiritual thought. I'd like to see where you can run to. He suddenly recalled that when he was killing Quasi-Emperor Wuxia, someone had come out to stop him. Could there be some connection between these quasi-emperors? He could use Bai Lin to verify it. In any case, the other party would not be able to escape from his grasp. Just as Chu Kuangren was chasing after Bai Lin with his spiritual thought, the godly phoenix at the mouth of the volcano suddenly opened its eyes. Its charred body was once again lit up with golden flames, and the godly phoenix's aura continued to rise. It's alive. The divine phoenix is alive. The divine phoenix is not dead. This is Nirvana. The legend was true. The divine phoenix could really be reborn. Moreover, the divine phoenix will become even more powerful after its nirvana rebirth. The crowd of cultivators exclaimed. Accompanied by a long howl, the godly phoenix stood up and flew into the sky. The charred skin and feathers on its body continued to fall off as a large amount of fire-based chi entered its body, causing the golden nirvana flames to burn even more vigorously. It was also continuously rebuilding its body. At that moment, all the birds in the firmament star looked towards the godly phoenix's direction and let out high-pitched cries as if they were celebrating. The myriad birds worship. Waves of Daoist rhymes reverberated in the sky. It was as if the heavens and earth were congratulating the divine beast for its advancement. The nirvana is complete. Chu Kuangren smiled. His spiritual thought had also captured the last place Bai Lin's spiritual body had gone to. Lil Red, let's go. I'll bring you to kill someone. Chu Kuangren lifted his arm and an incredibly mysterious spatial energy enveloped himself and the godly phoenix. The godly phoenix Lil Red trusted Chu Kuangren completely, so it did not resist the sudden appearance of this spatial energy. In an instant, the human and the godly phoenix disappeared right under everyone's noses. Inside a cave abode in the Nether Abyss Valley. An old man with a white beard, a black robe, and slightly sunken eyes was resting with his eyes closed. Suddenly, the old man's eyelids twitched. He opened his eyes and said in surprise, "I don't know why, but I've been feeling uneasy lately, especially after I met that Chu Kuangren." The old man could not help but reveal a hint of anger in his eyes when he thought of Chu Kuangren. He swore that Chu Kuangren was the most arrogant and despicable sage he had ever met. How dare he kill a boundary emperor of the Nether Abyss Valley right in front of him? However, at the same time, he had to admit that Chu Kuangren was also the most talented cultivator he had ever met. In this era of great battles, with his capabilities, it's very likely that he will become an emperor. Unless necessary, it's best not to have any conflict with him. The old man mumbled helplessly. "Valley Lord, save me." At that moment, a panicked cry for help came from afar. The entire Nether Abyss Valley heard it. The expression of the old man, who was the Nether Abyss Valley Lord, changed slightly. "That's Bai Lin's voice. What happened to him?" Bai Lin, who was left with only a spiritual body, rushed into the Nether Abyss Valley in a panic and screamed for help. His voice also alerted all the boundary emperors in the Nether Abyss Valley who were either slowly awakening or had already awakened. One by one, they released their spiritual thoughts to check on him. The results of the inspection shocked everyone. "That's Bai Lin, right? Why is he only left with a spiritual body?" To be able to make Bai Lin so flustered, who forced him to this state? Could it be that the quasi-emperors of the other forbidden lands made a move? Everyone has just awakened. Who would have fought Bai Lin so quickly? Just when everyone was in a state of shock. The void above the Nether Abyss Valley suddenly distorted, and two figures slowly walked out from it. An extremely domineering aura descended. Those two figures were Chu Kuangren and the godly phoenix who had chased after Bai Lin. The heavenly punishment's aura and the divine beast's aura swept across the entire Nether Abyss Valley, shocking all the boundary emperors who were hiding there. It's a divine beast. It's not just a divine beast. That young man beside him is the supreme sage who has been causing a commotion in the outside world recently. I can't believe this person would suddenly come to the Nether Abyss Valley. It seems that Bai Lin's current state is related to this person. In the outside world, only this person has such capabilities. Meanwhile, the Nether Abyss Valley Lord, who was in the cave abode, almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He was just thinking of not provoking Chu Kuangren if it was not necessary, but Bai Lin had brought him directly to the Nether Abyss Valley. Moreover, by the looks of it, he did not come with good intentions. However, the Nether Abyss Valley Lord was the owner of a forbidden area, and Bai Lin was a member of the Nether Abyss Valley. He could not just sit back and watch. Hence, he sighed helplessly and instantly disappeared. Meanwhile, above the Nether Abyss Valley, Chu Kuangren scanned the entire Nether Abyss Valley with his spiritual thoughts and found a large number of seals. It seemed that there were many powerful existences hidden within these seals, preventing his spiritual thoughts from probing inside. One of the 10 great forbidden areas, the Nether Abyss Valley, is actually a hiding place for a group of boundary emperors. Interesting. Chu Kuangren smirked. Chapter 481. Chu Kuangren and the godly phoenix descended upon the Nether Abyss Valley, and their domineering aura swept out like a hurricane. All the boundary emperors in the Nether Abyss Valley were shaken. Then, Chu Kuangren looked at Bai Lian's spiritual form not far away, and a black chain suddenly appeared in his hand. That chain was the soul retriever that he had not used for a long time. The soul retriever shot out like a bolt of lightning, and in the blink of an eye, it had captured Bai Lian's soul. Then, Chu Kuangren channeled his spiritual power and yanked, instantly dragging Bai Lian before him. The boundary emperor was like a dog that had been tied up. There was no way for him to escape. At that moment, the Nether Abyss Valley Lord appeared in the void. He looked at Chu Kuangren and said, "Brother Chu, I wonder what kind of grudge you have with the Nether Abyss Valley. Why do you keep targeting us?" Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised to hear that voice, but he chuckled. "This voice. You're the one who stopped me from killing Boundary Emperor Wuxia in the Heavenly Golden Palace. Looks like I've come to the right place. Valley Lord, save me. Save me." Bai Lian cried out as if he had seen his savior the moment he saw the Nether Abyss Valley Lord. Chu Kuangren, who was beside him, tugged on the soul retriever, and an extremely chilling energy erupted. Even a boundary emperor like Bai Lian could not help but shiver. The other boundary emperors who were observing from the shadows could not help but feel a little fearful. That chain isn't that high in grade. It's only a sage ruler weapon, but it's specifically used to target souls. That's quite scary. Not to mention that Bai Lian is in his spiritual form. He's defenseless against that chain. The Nether Abyss Valley Lord's expression turned even uglier when he saw Bai Lian's miserable state. "Chu Kuangren, what do you want?" "What do I want?" Chu Kuangren raised an eyebrow and sneered. "I should be the one asking what the Nether Abyss Valley wants. First, Boundary Emperor Wuxia stopped me from destroying the Heavenly Golden Palace, and now this B***starred wants to take over the godly phoenix's body while she's undergoing nirvana. Now you're asking me what I want? I'd like to ask what the Nether Abyss Valley wants. Do you really think that I, Chu Kuangren, am a pushover?" Chu Kuangren's tone was so cold that it was freezing at the end of his sentence. The domineering aura on his body rose to its peak as dark clouds gathered in the sky behind him. Thunder rumbled, and a terrifying heavenly aura swept across, causing the entire Nether Abyss Valley to tremble. The wrath of a single person was like the wrath of the heavens. Even a quasi-emperor would be horrified to see such a method. "You." The Nether Valley Master was rendered speechless. "What, you have nothing to say?" Chu Kuangren said calmly. Then, he abruptly pulled the soul retriever and activated his spiritual power, pushing the soul retriever's power to its limit. An extremely chilling energy instantly enveloped Bai Lian, and his spiritual body began to crack before it shattered into countless light spots. Chu Kuangren then activated his universal cauldron physique to absorb a huge amount of soul energy that leaked out. Upon seeing this, the Lord of Nether Valley's face darkened with anger. Again. Chu Kuangren had once again killed the Nether Abyss Valley's boundary emperor in front of him. "Chu Kuangren, you're forcing me to attack," the Nether Valley Master said coldly as the Daoist rime on his body continued to rise. He was a top-notch existence in this world. Even in the 9 heavens, apart from the emperors, he was still a top-notch powerhouse. He had his own temper. Chu Kuangren had repeatedly slapped him in the face, so he was already furious. As for the idea of not provoking Chu Kuangren, it had long been thrown to the back of his mind. After all, Chu Kuangren had come looking for trouble. "When you tried to stop me from killing Boundary Emperor Wuxia, I've already told you not to let me know where you are. Otherwise, I'll come and kill you. Chu Kuangren chuckled. I've always been a man of my words. See, I'm here now. Then you can stay here. The Nether Valley Master yelled, and the Daoist rhyme that belonged to a top-notch boundary emperor instantly gushed out and surged towards Chu Kuangren like a tidal wave. Chu Kuangren did not back down. Instead, he unleashed his Daoist rhyme to fight back. That was the heavenly punishment Daoist rhyme. There was no Daoist rhyme in this world that could overpower him. The Valley Master has made his move. It's been years since I've seen the Valley Master in action. A supreme sage? I wonder just what level his strength has reached. The boundary emperors in the Nether Valley were discussing among themselves. However, none of them made a move. Although the Nether Valley Master was the Nether Valley Master in name, his status was not much higher than the other boundary emperors. Strictly speaking, he was only the Nether Valley Master, not the boundary emperors. For example, the Nether Valley was like an inn, and the boundary emperors were the guests staying in the inn. They had already paid a lot of resources when they moved into the Nether Valley. As the master of this place, the Nether Valley Master was naturally furious that his guests were killed one after another. However, he did not really want to avenge those who had died. He merely wanted to regain his dignity. The Nether Abyss Valley Lord knew that Chu Kuangren's strength was extraordinary and could not be treated as an ordinary sage. Hence, he did not dare to be careless in this battle. He raised his arm and took out a dark red longsword. The blade of the sword was covered with a layer of fine patterns that resembled dragon scales. A surge of resentment that was so dense that it almost materialized emanated from it. This is the dragon scale blood saber. It was once tainted with the blood of a true dragon. A long time ago, I've used this saber to slay countless strong enemies and absorbed their resentment into it. Although it's only a boundary emperor weapon, I'm confident that even a true emperor weapon wouldn't be able to defeat it. The Nether Valley Master held the dragon scale blood saber in his hand and said proudly, "Have you seen a true emperor weapon before?" Chu Kuangren said calmly and kept the soul retriever. With a lift of his hand, a golden trident slowly appeared out of thin air with a surge of Emperor's aura. The Emperor weapon, Empyrean Neptune's halberd, had reappeared. With Chu Kuangren's current cultivation level, the Empyrean Neptune's halberd's power was even more powerful. The moment he held the halberd in his hand, it was as if he had truly transformed into an emperor who could control the ocean. A large amount of torrential force instantly filled the entire Nether Valley. It was as if everyone could hear the sound of a tsunami. No. It was not as if. Everyone saw that the extremely dense torrential force had actually condensed into seawater in the air. Thunder rumbled in the sky, followed by a torrential downpour. In the blink of an eye, the torrential rain had drowned half of the Nether Valley, turning many valleys into a swamp. Come, I'll show you the power of an emperor weapon. Chu Kuangren held the Empyrean Neptune's halberd in his hand and swung it down. The sound of a tsunami reverberated through the air as the majestic torrential force wrapped around the Empyrean Neptune's halberd. It was as if an entire ocean was crashing towards the Nether Valley Master. The Nether Valley Master's expression changed slightly as he raised his saber to block the attack. The collision between the Empyrean Neptune's halberd and the dragon scale blood saber let out a deafening sound as horrifying palm chi gushed out. Meanwhile, the Nether Valley Master could only feel an incomparably terrifying force pouring towards him. His arm was almost broken by that tremendous force, and the dragon scale blood saber almost slipped out of his grasp. With just one attack, the Nether Valley Master was already at a disadvantage. Chapter 482. With a loud crash, the Nether Valley Lord was forced back by hundreds of meters. The dragon scale blood saber in his hand buzzed incessantly, and he had to channel his spiritual power to stabilize it. An emperor weapon. This is an emperor weapon. I can't believe he can unleash the power of an emperor weapon to such an extent. No wonder he's a supreme sage. The Nether Valley Lord exclaimed to himself. Following that, the Daoist rime on his body circulated, and he unleashed a blood-red saber ray at Chu Kuangren. The blood-red saber ray was like a rainbow, and wherever it went, the heavens and earth were dyed red. Surges of resentment surged out in a frenzy, disturbing one's mind. This was the Nether Valley Lord's ultimate technique. Although it was only a Boundary Emperor technique, it was created by him, and it contained the essence of his Daoist techniques. This Emperor technique could unleash his combat strength to its fullest, and it was much more useful than the Emperor techniques created by others. This was also the most important cultivation in the Boundary Emperor realm, to forge one's own Dao. Judging from the techniques that the Nether Valley Lord had unleashed, he had already taken a big step forward in his Dao. Based on this alone, he was considered one of the top Boundary Emperors. Unfortunately, the person standing before him now was Chu Kuangren, who was wielding an Emperor weapon. Facing the blood-red saber ray, Chu Kuangren's expression was as cold as ice. He wielded the halberd in his hand firmly, unaffected by the resentment chi. His Daoist core was no weaker than the emperors of old. How could a small amount of resentment affect him? The halberd that carried the majestic torrential force smashed onto the saber ray. With a boom, the saber ray shattered, but the powerful torrential force did not stop at all. Like a tsunami, it continued to surge toward the Nether Valley Lord. Although half of it had been destroyed by the blood-red saber ray, the remaining force was still extremely terrifying. Break! The Lord of the Nether Abyss Valley slashed out with his long saber, splitting the torrent of water into two and sending it to his side. As he swung the saber in his hand, a surge of Daoist rime that was even more powerful than before circulated around him. Just as he was about to swing his saber, silver-white patterns appeared out of nowhere in the void and formed into a gigantic silver-white rune. It was the Spatial Freeze rune. As soon as the Spatial Freeze rune appeared, the surrounding void was sealed. Even with the ability of the Nether Valley Master, he was still a moment too slow. For experts of their level, a split second was enough to determine life and death. Today, someone else will be in charge of the Nether Abyss Valley. As Chu Kuangren spoke, his halberd mercilessly slashed downwards. Just as the enormous torrent of water was about to hit the Lord of the Nether Valley, an astonishing spatial fluctuation suddenly erupted from his body. At the last moment, it forcibly broke through the spatial seal of the Freeze talisman and turned into a white light shield that enveloped him. A great shift talisman. Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. The Nether Valley Lord was really decisive. Once he realized that he was no match for Chu Kuangren, who was wielding an Emperor weapon, he decided to leave on the spot. This greater teleportation talisman contained extremely powerful spatial energy. Although it had broken through the seal of the Space Solidify talisman, it was still a moment too slow. At that instant, Chu Kuangren's halberd had already slashed down. The enormous power of water instantly tore the Nether Valley Lord's right arm apart. After a scream, the Nether Valley Lord disappeared. Chu Kuangren's spiritual thought surged and covered the entire firmament star, but he still could not find the Nether Valley Lord. This was not unexpected. As a Boundary Emperor, it was normal for him to have some methods to hide himself and prevent others from prying on him with his spiritual thought. He raised his hand and took the dragon-scale blood saber and yin and yang ring from the severed arm into his hand. With a slight movement of his spiritual thought, the various treasures inside the yin and yang ring came into view. Wow, this Nether Valley Lord is quite wealthy. He has so many good things. In the yin and yang ring alone, there were 20 to 30 Boundary Emperor-grade treasures. There were even a few Emperor-grade treasures. However, they were all used for healing. If they could be used to improve one's foundation, the Nether Valley Lord would have used them long ago instead of keeping them until now. These items were not of much use to Chu Kuangren. After all, he had the immortal body. However, it was a good idea to keep them as the foundation of the Black Heaven sect. Now, is there anyone else who is unhappy that I killed Boundary Emperor Wuxia and Bai Lin? Chu Kuangren kept everything away and looked down at the Nether Valley Lord. He knew that many Boundary Emperors were watching him. After he asked the question, not a single person said a word. With an Emperor weapon in hand, Chu Kuangren had defeated the Nether Valley Lord in just a few moves and forced him to flee. With such combat strength, no one in the Nether Valley Lord could be a match for Chu Kuangren in a one-on-one fight. As for ganging up on Chu Kuangren, they did not have a deep grudge against him. There was no need for them to fight Chu Kuangren to the death for Boundary Emperor Wuxia and Bai Lin. These Boundary Emperors had lived for a very long time, but they valued their lives more than anything else. Hence, they were not willing to put themselves in danger. If that's the case, I don't mind making a few more friends. I wonder if any of you Boundary Emperors are willing to show yourselves? Chu Kuangren suddenly said. During his battle with the Nether Valley Lord, he had more or less figured out the relationship between these people and the Nether Valley Lord. They were not superiors and subordinates, nor were they friends. They were more like a group of strangers who had never interacted with each other before. Since they were not enemies, Chu Kuangren did not mind interacting with these Boundary Emperors. Even if he did not befriend them, it was not a bad idea to become acquainted with them. After all, they were the top group of people in the Firmament Star. The Boundary Emperors were stunned when they heard Chu Kuangren's name. For a moment, they could not figure out what Chu Kuangren meant by that. However, they were not stupid. After thinking about it carefully, they could roughly guess what he meant. It seems that this person is not just a simple brute. This person is so talented that he can be said to be world-shaking. If we can befriend him, it would be a good thing. If that's the case, then show yourselves. Not long after, several figures flew out from all over the Nether Valley Lord. These people were all current Boundary Emperors. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation, and the information of the people in front of him was reflected in his eyes. Boundary Emperor Fang Yun cultivates the Black Water Turbid Wave scripture, specializes in water-based Taoism. Shadow Demon Boundary Emperor, his true form is a shadow snake, has the Divine Shadow Clone technique. Boundary Emperor Tian Shui, Frost Physique, cultivates the 9 Frosty Skies sword art, specializes in ice-based Taoism. One by one, the information of the Boundary Emperors appeared, and Chu Kuangren memorized them one by one. Only by knowing oneself and one's enemy could one emerge victorious. Who knew if they would face each other in the future, so it would not be wrong to learn more about them first. My name is Chu Kuangren, the Black Heaven sect leader. Greetings, fellow Daoists. Chu Kuangren smiled gently at the crowd. His smile was so warm that it felt like a spring breeze. Coupled with his otherworldly appearance and temperament, it was hard not to have a good impression of him. The Boundary Emperors did not know what to say. Was the person who came to the Nether Valley to pick a fight, who was so domineering and arrogant, and this fairy-like man in front of them the same person? This change in attitude was too fast, wasn't it? Greetings, Brother Chu. Although we've lived here for a long time, we've heard of Brother Chu's great name. A supreme sage that is rarely seen in the past and present is truly admirable. Yes, he's a peerless sky pride. Although the Boundary Emperors still had some grudges, they still pretended to be polite. Chapter 483. Chu Kuangren, who came to the Nether Abyss Valley to pick a fight and even chased away the Nether Abyss Valley Lord, suddenly became an honored guest of the Nether Abyss Valley. He entered the Nether Abyss Valley and arrived at a cave abode. He was not afraid that these people would do anything to him. He might not be a match for all of them, but it was more than enough for him to protect himself. However, to ensure the godly phoenix's safety, he first used the spatial conveyor technique to send the godly phoenix back to the Black Heaven sect. Inside the Nether Abyss Valley, Chu Kuangren gathered with a group of Boundary Emperors. They talked a lot about everything under the sun, and Chu Kuangren also had a lot of things that he wanted to learn from them. For example, he wanted to know if there were other boundary emperors like them in the other forbidden areas. The answer he got was yes, and there were quite a few of them. Among the 10 great forbidden areas, besides the ancient battlefield and the misty ocean, the other 8 forbidden areas all had strong cultivators from the ancient era. It's rare for everyone to gather together. Why don't we have a Daoist discussion? At that moment, a boundary emperor suggested. That's a good suggestion. Normally, everyone is either sleeping or staying in seclusion. It's rare that we're all gathered here today. Why don't we discuss the Tao and verify whether we've regressed over the years? It's pretty good. That's right. Besides, Brother Chu is here too. I'm very curious about your Tao technique realm. Chu Kuangren smiled. I'm fine with that. He was also curious about how powerful his Tao technique realm was now. Apart from Chu Kuangren, the rest were all boundary emperors, and there were more than 10 of them. When the Daoist discussion began, the first to display her Daoist rhyme was a female cultivator named Boundary Emperor Tian Shui. She specialized in ice-based Tao, and the moment her Daoist rhyme appeared, the surrounding temperature dropped to freezing point. Then, a sword of ice and snow formed above her head. The other boundary emperors also began to display their Daoist rhymes. There were water-based Daoist Tao, flame Daoist Tao, and the 5 elements Daoist rhymes, more than 10 different Daoist rhymes intertwined and collided in the void, forming a beautiful Daoist painting. The entire Nether Abyss Valley was shocked. Chu Kuangren looked at the Daoist painting thoughtfully before he released his own Daoist rhyme. It was an extremely sharp Daoist rhyme that could tear the heavens and the earth apart. His Daoist rhyme entered the painting and almost tore it apart. What a powerful sword Daoist rhyme! As expected of a supreme sage. His level of Tao techniques completely surpasses other sages. When I was still a saint, I wasn't even a tenth of his. All the quasi-emperors exclaimed. The Tao discussion continued. The Tao of the dozen or so sub-emperors each had their own unique characteristics. However, Chu Kuangren was a little special. He knew too many techniques, including many emperor techniques. From the initial heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique to the sword chi clones, Raging God's Fist, Heart-Piercing Finger, Heaven's Morning Palm, and the Tathagata Rebirth Mantra, all sorts of Daoist rhymes appeared on his body. There was clearly only one person, but he was as resplendent as 10-odd quasi-emperors. Everyone exclaimed in surprise, calling him a monster in their hearts. After a round of Daoist discussion, everyone was amazed by the depth of Chu Kuangren's understanding of Tao techniques. However, he himself was deep in thought and did not look happy at all. Fellow Chu's comprehension of the Tao is indeed unprecedented. Even we old fellows can't compare to it. However, the Tao that fellow Chu comprehended is the Tao of others in the end, and not your own Tao. An elderly boundary emperor said. He was the strongest boundary emperor in the Nether Abyss Valley apart from the Nether Abyss Valley Lord. He could tell what Chu Kuangren was thinking about with just a glance. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. You're right, brother. The Tao of others may be powerful, but only by walking one's own Tao can one reach the peak. The old man continued. That was also the cultivation of a boundary emperor. The boundary emperors present might have learned many Tao techniques in the past, but now, they only wanted to walk on their own Tao of cultivation. After all, no matter how powerful the Tao of others was, it was still the Tao of others. Blindly imitating and chasing after others would only lead one's life. Moreover, every emperor was also a strong cultivator who had walked on their own Tao and followed it to the end. My own Tao? Chu Kuangren murmured. Actually, fellow Chu's comprehension of Tao arts isn't inferior to their creators, and it's even to the extent of surpassing them. Choosing one to walk to the extreme and transform it into one's own Tao isn't impossible. Some emperors have done this. Or perhaps, you can walk on the path of smelting all techniques and turning them into one. This is also a possibility. Brother Chu, you have the transcendent coalescence Daoist physique and the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart. Perhaps you can walk on the single sword cleaving technique Dao. That's a top-notch Dao. One of the Boundary Emperors said. Watch your words. The elderly Boundary Emperor glared at the 2 Boundary Emperors. That was one's own Dao, and outsiders should not step into it. One must break through it himself. The 2 Boundary Emperors knew that they had misspoken, so they did not say anything more. Single sword cleaving technique Dao. Chu Kuangren was deep in thought. In his early years, he had walked on this path, and he was still walking on it. However, aside from the single sword cleaving technique Dao, he knew many other things. Was this really the Dao that he needed? Everything that he had learned in his life flashed through his mind. Sword techniques, Buddhist techniques, fist techniques, finger techniques, palm techniques, talisman Dao, alchemy Dao, there were too many. He knew too many things, and every one of them was top-notch. However, he did not feel proud at all. He was thinking, which of these Daos is the most suitable for me? Should I give up on some Daos and focus on a Dao that belongs to me? Chu Kuangren was deep in thought. His thoughts were gradually pulled back to more than 10 years ago, when he had just entered the world. That day, the weather was bright and sunny. He and Lan Yu walked out of the Black Heaven Sect's mountain gate, and Honorable Xian Qi and the others sent them off. Before he left, he said that he was the only one who stood out from the crowd, which made him a thorn in the side of the Sky Prides. His path of cultivation also began with that sentence. Since then, he had defeated Sky Prides, killed powerful enemies, challenged secret realms, slaughtered demonic cultivators, and destroyed orthodoxies. Until now, not only was he invincible among his peers, but he was also the strongest in the world. Ever since he entered the world, he had never been defeated. That's right. Never. He, Chu Kuangren, had never been defeated in 10,000 battles. He was the first person in history to do so. His path was also the path that no one had ever walked since ancient times. Since ancient times, who dared to say they were invincible? Who dared to say they were undefeated? He dared. Chu Kuangren wanted to walk on the Tao of invincibility. I'm invincible. It did not matter what Tao he cultivated or what techniques he cultivated. Sword techniques, fist techniques, palm techniques, and runes did not matter at all. All of these were just tricks. He was invincible, and his heart was invincible. Any Tao or technique would be invincible in his hands. Chu Kuangren's eyes became clearer and brighter. An indescribably terrifying aura swept out from his body. This aura was completely different from the Daoist rhymes that he had displayed before. It contained a strong sense of confidence, and anyone who saw Chu Kuangren now could not ignore his existence. That kind of aura was enough to sweep the world and suppress everything. As for the other Daoist rhymes on his body, they were all contained in that aura. The expressions of all the quasi-emperors present changed slightly. He has found the Tao that he wants to walk on. What a terrifying aura. It looks like this Tao of his is not going to be easy. Oh my God, he's found his Tao just like that? That's too fast. This guy is really a freak. Chapter 484. A person's Tao was not something that could be easily found. In other words, a person's Tao was a summary of their own cultivation path. If a cultivator could not find a Tao that suited them, it would be difficult for them to reach the peak. The Boundary Emperors had spent countless hours to verify and speculate before they finally found their own Tao. However, Chu Kuangren was able to find it just like that. Moreover, it seemed like the two of them were very compatible with each other. There was nothing out of the ordinary about it at all. Congratulations, Brother Chu. Now that Brother Chu has found your Tao, all that's left is to verify it. We'll wait for Brother Chu to verify it and ascend to the Emperor realm. Chu Kuangren chuckled. I've gained a lot from this sparring session. Thank you, everyone. You're too kind, Brother Chu. It's all because of Brother Chu's own opportunities of fortune. Chu Kuangren conversed with the Boundary Emperors. Before he left, he found Boundary Emperor Tian Shui, who had the Frost physique, and said, Boundary Emperor Tian Shui, since you're an expert in Frost Dao, I'm sure you have a lot of ice-attributed treasures. I'd like to exchange 2 of them with you. I wonder if you're willing to do so. Oh, Brother Chu wants to cultivate Frost Dao. Not really. I'm just asking for it for a friend of mine. I see. Boundary Emperor Tian Shui nodded. Then, she generously took out a few of her most valuable Frost Elemental treasures and exchanged them with Chu Kuangren. One of them was a Boundary Emperor weapon. Strictly speaking, Boundary Emperor Tian Shui had profited from this exchange. However, Chu Kuangren did not mind. He had gained a lot from this trip to the Nether Abyss Valley, far more than these treasures. After leaving the Nether Abyss Valley, he returned to the volcanic crater and met the White Robe General. After he left, the White Robe General had obtained a few more treasures. However, he stood there helplessly. What's wrong? Are you not happy with the treasures? I suddenly remembered you said that Qingxue has an Frost physique, and the treasures I've obtained are all fire attributed. They clash with her, so I'm afraid I can't give them to her. If the 2 attributes clashed, a coveted treasure could turn into a deadly weapon if used improperly. The White Robe General would not take such a risk by giving Shang Qingxue his treasures. I already calculated it. Take it. Chu Kuangren smiled and took out a few treasures from his yin and yang ring. An extremely strong wave of frost rippled, and the originally hot volcanic crater became a little chilly. These are. The White Robe General stared at the cold attribute treasures before him in astonishment. There was a Daoist robe, a pearl, and a sword respectively. These 3 supreme treasures were all emanating a powerful chilling intent. Any one of them was a supreme treasure that any cultivator who cultivated in the frost element could only dream of obtaining. Now, Chu Kuangren had stuffed all of them into his hands. I just got to know some people, so I took it from them. It's perfect for you as a greeting gift. The White Robe General was somewhat hesitant. This, what do you mean by this and that? Take it. If you feel embarrassed, you can exchange the treasures you snatched here with me. That should be fine, right? All right then. The White Robe General nodded and passed all the treasures that he had just obtained to Chu Kuangren. After all, these were not of much use to him anyway. He glanced at Chu Kuangren with gratitude in his eyes. Many thanks. It was Chu Kuangren who had helped him find his descendant, and now he was doing so much for their relationship. The gratitude in his heart was indescribable. We're all friends here. You don't have to be so polite. Chu Kuangren smiled and was about to leave. However, a fragrant wind suddenly blew over, and a beautiful red figure appeared in front of Chu Kuangren. It was the 9 Heavens' Pride, Humeiren. I'm Heavenly Fox Tribe's Humeiren. I've admired you for a long time, Brother Chu. I have a courtyard nearby, and I wonder if I can invite you there so that we can talk through the night? Humeiren said as she stared at Chu Kuangren with a pair of watery peach blossom eyes. If it were any other cultivator, they would have gone limp under such a gaze and would have agreed without hesitation. However, Chu Kuangren's eyes were calm. I'm sorry, but I'm in a hurry. I don't have time. Brother Chu, are you sure you don't want to reconsider? This little girl admires you very much. Humeiren slowly walked forward, and the fragrance that lingered in Chu Kuangren's nose became even stronger. That fragrance was intoxicating. Apart from the sweetness in Humeiren's eyes, there was also a hint of seduction in them. She was slightly shorter than Chu Kuangren. She was dressed in a gorgeous red dress that had a low cut. When she bent over slightly, her smooth, creamy skin seemed to dazzle the eyes, and the faintly discernible cleavage made people want to stuff their eyeballs into it to see what was going on. Chu Kuangren glanced at her. Then, the descendant self-sword at his waist suddenly unsheathed itself with a clang. The tip of the sword was aimed at Hu Meiren's slender white neck, and a sharp sword chi spread out as if it would behead that beautiful head in the next moment. Hu Meiren could not help but gulp, but a charming smile appeared on her face. "Brother Chu, what's the meaning of this?" "I'm sorry, but my descendant self-sword doesn't like strangers getting too close to me." Chu Kuangren smiled gently. He looked so good when he smiled that Hu Meiren could not help but feel a little dazed. "What a man who wants to kill me." While Hu Meiren was dazed, a sharp sword chi erupted from the descendant self-sword, instantly forcing Hu Meiren to retreat. Could it be that the sword is jealous? Hu Meiren glanced at the sword and said with some uncertainty. "Who knows?" With a thought from Chu Kuangren, the descendant self-sword automatically returned to its scabbard with a clang. "White robe, let's go." "All right." Chu Kuangren did not even look at Hu Meiren and left with the white-robed general. Looking at Chu Kuangren's departing figure, Hu Meiren licked her lips. "I don't believe that there's a man in this world that I can't take down." "Huh, you sly fox, just give up. I'm afraid that your tricks won't work on this person. You might as well seduce me instead of him." Wang Tianteng laughed and said. You? You can't even compare to a finger of his. Seducing you is no fun at all." Hu Meiren glanced at him and said in disdain. Upon hearing that, Wang Tianteng raised an eyebrow and revealed a look of displeasure. "Chu Kuangren may be strong, but I'm not one to be belittled. Sly Fox may be a slut, but her words are quite pertinent. TSK, the few of us here are no match for him." Zhan Hongying, who was wearing a metal mask, walked up and said. "If even you say that, then it seems that not only is Chu Kuangren strong, but his face is even better too." Xiao Jingchen said calmly, but he was feeling a little jealous. There were not many female cultivators on the Soaring Dragon leaderboard, and only 2 of them were in the top 10. They were Zhan Hongying and Hu Meiren. Zhan Hongying was ranked 2nd on the Soaring Dragon leaderboard, and she was even more outstanding than Xiao Jingchen. Now, even these 2 were on Chu Kuangren's side. Although what they said was true, the few of them were still unhappy about it. Why was Chu Kuangren so outstanding? Chapter 485. Chu Kuangren and the white-robed general returned to the elusive mirage after leaving the volcano. Shang Qingxue had woken up some time ago. She was daydreaming in one of the pavilions in the elusive mirage, and she only regained her senses when she noticed Chu Kuangren and the white-robed general's arrival. "Greetings, sect leader." Shang Qingxue stepped forward and bowed. "How are you?" "I'm fine. By the way, sect leader, has your heavenly punishment seal been broken?" "Yes." Chu Kuangren nodded. Shang Qingxue was delighted. "That's great." Then, she looked at the white-robed general curiously. This is, for some reason, Shang Qingxue felt a sense of familiarity when she looked at the white-robed general before her. "Qingxue, let me introduce you. This is the white-robed general, your ancestor." "What?" Shang Qingxue was stunned. I'll let him explain what happened to you." Chu Kuangren chuckled and left, leaving the white-robed general and the white-robed general alone. After Chu Kuangren left, the white-robed general looked at Shang Qingxue cautiously. He did not know what to say. After all, no matter who it was, they would find it hard to accept that they suddenly had a living ancestor standing right in front of them. "These are my greeting gifts for you." The white-robed general, who did not know what else to say, took out the gifts he had prepared. Shang Qingxue could not help but gasp when she saw the ice-based treasures before her. The extremely dense ice-based energy fluctuations made her Daoist physique jump with joy. What a powerful treasure! Could this bead be the deep-sea frosty jade? Rumor has it that this bead can increase the cultivation speed of ice-based cultivators. And this sword is at least a sage ruler weapon. It might even be close to a boundary emperor weapon. Xianxia was stunned when she saw the treasures before her. These will be very beneficial to your cultivation. Take them. After giving her the gifts, the two began to chat casually. From how the white-robed general asked Chu Kuangren to take care of Xianxia and her daughter, to how the white-robed general joined the Black Heaven sect recently. Not far away. At the edge of a flower bed. Chu Kuangren smirked. Looks like you're getting along quite well. Under the cover of his spiritual will, there was nothing on the elusive mirage that could hide from him. Although he had left to give the two of them some space, he was still very curious as to how the two of them would reunite with each other. There was no way he could control his gossipy soul. A few days after the white-robed general and Xianxia reunited, the two of them got along quite well. Xianxia did not reject it. Who wouldn't want a powerful ancestor to suddenly give her a treasure? In addition, after hearing the love story between the white-robed general and the princess of the Lu Kingdom, she was even more touched. She admired and felt close to the white-robed general. As for the white-robed general, there was no need to even mention him. This had been his long-cherished wish for many years. Now that he had fulfilled it, his entire aura had become much calmer. He was no longer as cold and unapproachable as before. Although he was wearing a mask, Chu Kuangren could often see the smile in his eyes these few days. Back at the Black Heaven sect, Chu Kuangren began to study the stone tablet that he obtained from Acheron Manor while he was handling the sect's affairs. Besides that, the Black Heaven sect had developed by leaps and bounds. Elder Ruyan and the others had also ascended to the Boundary Sage realm. Logically speaking, they should have gone into seclusion and focused on accumulating the resources needed to become a sage. However, since Chu Kuangren had yet to break the seal, they helped him manage the Black Heaven sect. On this day, inside the Longevity Hall, Elder Ruyan and the others found Chu Kuangren together. What? All of you are planning to go into closed-door meditation to become a sage? Chu Kuangren was dumbfounded. If all the elders, especially Elder Ruyan, went into closed-door meditation, would he be the only one left to manage the huge Black Heaven sect? What the hell? Rest assured, sect leader. We've already decided on our replacements. Besides, with the Black Heaven sect's resources, it won't take too long for us to go into closed-door meditation. We'll be able to become a sage in a dozen years at most, Elder Ruyan said as she handed over a list of names. That was the list of disciples that she had decided on to take over the position of an elder. She had discussed it with Chu Kuangren some time ago. Chu Kuangren was a little reluctant. After all, although there were replacements, the sect's affairs had always been handled by Chu Kuangren and the other elders. It was inevitable that he would feel a little uncomfortable at the beginning when so many people were suddenly replaced. However, since it was related to becoming a sage, he could not say much and could only nod in agreement. After Elder Ruyan left, she came to a small courtyard in the Black Heaven sect. That was her residence. The small courtyard was very simple. Apart from a wooden house, there was only a tall loquat tree in front of the wooden house. She set up a few restrictions and planned to go into closed-door meditation. However, when she thought of Chu Kuangren, she could not calm down. Can the sect leader really do it alone? Although we've already decided on a few people, if we suddenly hand over all the affairs to the sect leader, it'll be a mess no matter what. It was not that she had no confidence in Chu Kuangren. She knew that he could manage the Black Heaven sect well, but she was still a little worried. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell the sect leader that the Four Seas firm's mines in the Blackwater Prefecture and the Black Heaven sect have already reaped their harvest last month. Besides that, the Horizon Wing sect is preparing to send their disciples over for an exchange as well. The Horizon Wing sect leader is still waiting for a response, Elder Rian got up and was about to tell Chu Kuangren about these things. Suddenly, she stopped in her tracks and laughed bitterly. I told you to focus on your closed-door meditation. Why are you suddenly thinking about these things? All these years, she had been in charge of all the affairs in the Black Heaven sect. Now that she had suddenly relaxed, she was not used to it. Elder Rian, Lan Yu, would like to see you. At that moment, Lan Yu's voice came from outside. What's the matter? Elder Rian went out and saw Lan Yu standing under the loquat tree. Elder Rian, Master asked me to come and give you something. She took out a small box that contained some tea leaves. The sect leader is giving me tea leaves? That's strange. How did he know that I like to drink tea? Elder Rian was a little surprised. Elder Rian, you've been assisting Master all these years. You've worked hard, and Master will always remember that. This is just a small cup of tea. Thank you, Lan Yu. Thank you, sect leader. Alright, I'll take my leave then. Take care. After Elder Rian sent Lan Yu off, she entered the wooden house and took out a pot of water. Since it's the sect leader's kind intentions, I'll give it a try. Elder Rian murmured and began to brew the tea leaves. Not long after, waves of tea fragrance filled the air. She did not know if it was an illusion, but after smelling the tea fragrance, Elder Rian felt that her mind had become a lot more ethereal. She looked at the tea leaves that were steeped in the water and a mysterious Daoist rhyme filled it. She could not help but be shocked. These tea leaves contained such a mysterious Daoist rhyme? She carefully picked up the teacup and took a sip. A mysterious feeling of enlightenment immediately filled his mind, and his understanding of the Tao also rose along with it. Waves of Daoist rhyme circulated within her body, allowing her to quickly advance towards the sage realm. You're tuning in to the UnparalleledSwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.